Imagine warriors bleeding out on sacred ground. Their final breaths meant not for glory, but to feed the hungry spirits of the dead. This wasn't entertainment. This was survival beyond death itself. Welcome to the brutal world where gladiatorial combat was born, in the mysterious depths of Etruscan civilization, where every drop of spilled blood carried divine purpose. Long before the thunderous roars echoed through Rome's magnificent Colosseum, centuries before emperors decided the fate of fighters with simple thumb gestures, a far darker and more mystical tradition had already taken root. The Etruscans, masters of death rituals and supernatural beliefs, had crafted something that would reshape human entertainment forever. They created the blueprint for what we now call gladiatorial games, but their version served purposes that went far beyond mere spectacle. The Etruscan practice called munus wasn't about thrilling crowds or political power plays. Instead, it represented a sacred covenant with the dead, a spiritual transaction that could determine whether a soul found peace or wandered forever in supernatural torment. When influential Etruscan nobles breathed their last breath, their surviving families faced enormous pressure to organize funeral ceremonies that included forced combat between prisoners, slaves, and condemned criminals. These early fighters, known as bustuari, weren't seeking fame or freedom. They battled beside funeral pyres and tomb entrances, knowing their deaths would serve as offerings to guide deceased nobles through the treacherous underworld journey. The term munus itself comes from ancient concepts of duty and obligation, highlighting how these contests functioned as religious services rather than crowd-pleasing entertainment. Archaeological discoveries have revealed that these funeral battles primarily occurred during burial rituals for wealthy aristocrats and political leaders. The Etruscans held firm beliefs about blood containing life force with supernatural capabilities, able to nourish departed spirits. When fighters perished during these ceremonies, their vital essence supposedly transferred directly to the deceased noble, providing spiritual strength for navigating the dangerous realm beyond death. This belief system established a direct relationship between social importance and the scale of funeral violence. More significant individuals demanded more extensive blood sacrifices to ensure adequate spiritual protection. The captive warriors forced into these early gladiatorial contests came mainly from military campaigns against neighboring tribes and city-states. Etruscan armies regularly captured enemy soldiers during their constant territorial conflicts, and these prisoners faced several potential destinies upon reaching Etruscan territory. Some became agricultural or domestic slaves, others served as sacrificial victims in religious ceremonies, while the most physically capable were reserved for funeral combat. The selection process favored individuals who displayed martial skills, physical strength, and the ability to provide engaging fights before their inevitable deaths. The tomb paintings at Tarquinia offer the most comprehensive visual documentation of early Etruscan gladiatorial practices. The Tomb of the Augurs, dating to approximately 530 BCE, contains frescoes depicting a masked figure called Fursu, who appears to be controlling a combat scenario. This figure holds a long leash attached to a dog that attacks a man whose head is covered by a sack while the victim attempts to defend himself with a club. The scene likely represents an early form of gladiatorial execution rather than fair combat, suggesting that not all funeral battles followed identical formats. More revealing are paintings found in the Tomb of the Olympic Games at Tarquinia, which display armed combat between pairs of warriors wearing different types of protective gear. These fighters carry round shields, wear helmets with distinctive crests, and wield short swords similar to those later adopted by Roman gladiators. The artistic style and attention to detail in these frescoes indicate that the artists witnessed actual combat, as the positioning of fighters, their defensive stances, and realistic equipment depiction all suggest observation rather than imaginative interpretation. The archaeological site of Volsci has yielded additional evidence of Etruscan funeral games through both tomb paintings and physical artifacts. The Francois tomb, discovered in 1857, contains elaborate frescoes depicting various scenes of violence and sacrifice, including what appears to be gladiatorial combat. These paintings show fighters wearing distinctly different armor styles, suggesting that Etruscans had already begun developing specialized gladiatorial types that would later become standard in Roman arenas. Some warriors appear in heavy armor with large shields, while others fight with minimal protection and smaller weapons. indicating that variety in combat styles was considered important for the entertainment value of the games. Physical evidence from Vault C includes bronze weapons, armor fragments, and ceremonial items associated with funeral rites. Excavations have uncovered short swords with distinctive hilts, bronze helmets with elaborate decorations, and shield bosses that match equipment depicted in tomb paintings. The quality of these artifacts suggests that funeral combat required significant investment, as weapons and armor were crafted specifically for these occasions rather than being repurposed military equipment. The religious significance of blood sacrifice permeated every aspect of Etruscan funeral practices. Their complex mythology described the afterlife as a dangerous realm populated by demons and hostile spirits that could prevent the deceased from reaching their final destination. Etruscans believed that fresh human blood possessed power to appease these malevolent entities and provide safe passage for the dead. This belief system created insatiable demand for human sacrifice during funeral ceremonies, with the most important nobles requiring multiple victims to ensure adequate spiritual protection. Etruscan priests, known as haruspices, played crucial roles in determining appropriate scale and timing of funeral games. These religious specialists examined entrails of sacrificed animals to divine wishes of the deceased and requirements for successful passage to the afterlife. Their interpretations influenced decisions about how many fighters should participate, what types of combat would be most beneficial, and which specific rituals needed to accompany bloodshed. The haruspices also supervised actual combat to ensure it fulfilled its religious purpose, rather than degenerating into mere entertainment. The connection between Etruscan funeral games and their broader religious practices extended beyond simple blood sacrifice. Etruscans worshipped a pantheon of underworld deities who demanded regular offerings of human life. Pater, their version of Hades, ruled over the realm of the dead and required tribute from the living to maintain cosmic balance. Tuchilcha, a demon with a vulture's head and snakes for hair, served as a psychopomp who guided souls through the underworld, but only if properly appeased through blood offerings. These religious beliefs created a theological framework that justified and encouraged the practice of funeral combat. Early Etruscan weapons and fighting techniques derived directly from their military traditions and battlefield experiences. Etruscan armies employed various weapons, including short-thrusting swords, javelins, and battle axes, all of which appeared in funeral combat scenarios. The distinctive Etruscan helmet, characterized by bronze construction and elaborate crest decorations, became standard gladiatorial equipment. These helmets often featured face guards and neck protection that would later influence Roman gladiatorial armor design. Fighting styles employed in Etruscan funeral games reflected practical military techniques adapted for single combat. Warriors trained in the use of the gladius hispaniensis, a short sword that would eventually give its name to gladiators themselves. This weapon, measuring approximately 24 inches in length, proved ideal for close-quarters combat and allowed for both thrusting and slashing attacks. Etruscans paired this sword with various shield types, including the round clypeus and oval scutum, each requiring different fighting techniques and defensive strategies. Etruscan military influence on gladiatorial combat extended to developing specialized fighting styles based on different ethnic traditions. As Etruscan armies encountered various enemy peoples, they observed and adopted effective weapons and techniques from each culture. Celtic warriors contributed long swords and distinctive shield designs, while Samnite fighters introduced javelin use and lighter armor. These diverse influences merged within Etruscan funeral games, creating the foundation for specialized gladiatorial types that would later emerge in Roman arenas. This was how it all began, not in Rome's marble corridors of power, but in Etruscan tombs, where death demanded payment in blood, and warriors died not for glory, but to ensure the dead could find their way home. The preparation of warriors for Etruscan funeral battles took place in specialized facilities that would eventually inspire the legendary Roman gladiatorial schools. Affluent families established private training compounds where doomed prisoners mastered essential combat skills under veteran warrior supervision. These primitive ludi concentrated on imparting crucial abilities, including weapon mastery, defensive positioning, and fundamental attack sequences. Training duration remained necessarily limited since most combatants faced death within days or weeks following their capture. Yet this instruction proved adequate to guarantee engaging battles rather than awkward massacres. The Etruscans understood that clumsy, untrained fighters would fail to provide the spiritual energy required by their deceased nobles, making proper combat preparation essential for religious success. The social framework surrounding Etruscan funeral contests established numerous precedents that would endure throughout gladiatorial history. Prosperous families engaged in fierce competition to sponsor the most elaborate and unforgettable funeral spectacles, utilizing these events to showcase their social standing and political power. The magnitude of these games became a direct indicator of each family's wealth and significance within Etruscan society, generating pressure for increasingly magnificent displays of violence and luxury. Converting military captives into arena fighters demanded intricate systems of assessment and conditioning. Etruscan administrators evaluated prisoners according to their physical state, combat experience, and potential spectacle value. Those judged appropriate for arena warfare received fundamental medical care to ensure effective fighting capability, while others faced assignment to mass executions or sacrificial rituals. This selection methodology established the principle that gladiatorial warfare required skilled participants rather than random casualties. The geographical expansion of Etruscan funeral games throughout central Italy generated regional variations in fighting styles and religious customs. Northern Etruscan cities like Volterra and Fiesole developed preferences for heavily armored combatants, utilizing traditional military gear, while southern communities near Rome experimented with lighter protection and more agile fighting methods. These regional distinctions contributed to the diversity of gladiatorial categories that would later define Roman spectacles. The economic influence of Etruscan funeral games extended far beyond immediate expenses for weapons and fighters. Specialized artisans emerged to manufacture gladiatorial equipment, establishing an industry that would eventually employ thousands of workers throughout the Roman Empire. Bronzesmiths developed innovative techniques for creating lightweight yet resilient armor, while weapon craftsmen refined sword and shield designs specifically for arena warfare. These commercial relationships formed the economic foundation that would sustain gladiatorial entertainment for centuries. The transformation from Etruscan sacred ceremony to Roman political instrument began with a singular event that would revolutionize the ancient world's conception of public spectacle. In 264 BCE, two Roman siblings, Marcus and Decimus Junius Brutus Pera, organized what would become the first documented munus on Roman territory to honor their recently departed father. The location was the Forum Borarium, Rome's cattle marketplace, where temporary wooden arena structures were erected to accommodate the performance. 3 pairs of combatants engaged in deadly warfare, while hundreds of Roman citizens observed from hastily constructed wooden seating. Their focus centered not on religious devotion, but on the expertise and bravery demonstrated by the fighters. The Brutus brothers' decision to stage gladiatorial contests represented a calculated political maneuver disguised as filial respect. Marcus Junius Brutus Pera had served as consul in 292 BCE and maintained considerable political aspirations for his family dynasty. The funeral games offered opportunities to exhibit family wealth, demonstrate commitment to traditional values, and create memorable spectacles that would enhance their reputation among Roman voters. Unlike purely religious Etruscan ceremonies, this Roman adaptation incorporated elements designed to attract popular preferences and political sensibilities. The atmosphere shifted from solemn spiritual obligation to exciting public entertainment, marking a fundamental transformation in gladiatorial purpose. The combatants selected for this inaugural Roman munus originated from prisoners captured during recent military campaigns against the Samnites and Gauls. Roman military victories had provided steady supplies of captives, and the Brutus family chose 6 men based on fighting experience and physical capabilities. Each pairing represented different ethnic backgrounds, creating variety that would become standard in later gladiatorial presentations. One pairing featured 2 Celtic warriors armed with their traditional long swords and wooden shields. Another matched Samnite fighters equipped with distinctive gear from their homeland, while the third combined a Roman deserter against a captured Germanic tribesman. This ethnic diversity added exotic appeal that captivated Roman audiences, accustomed to more homogeneous entertainments. The warfare itself followed Etruscan precedents, but incorporated distinctly Roman modifications. Each battle commenced with fighters saluting the deceased through ritual gestures toward his funeral mask, prominently displayed near the combat zone. The weapons provided included standard Roman gladius swords, various shield types, and protective equipment that would characterize later gladiatorial gear. Most significantly, these fights weren't predetermined executions, but genuine contests where skill and fortune determined outcomes, allowing some combatants to survive and potentially earn freedom. This element of uncertainty created dramatic tension that purely sacrificial ceremonies lacked, transforming religious obligation into thrilling entertainment. The Roman audience's response to this first munus surpassed all expectations. Citizens who initially attended from curiosity or social duty found themselves mesmerized by mortal combat intensity. The crowd's emotional investment in fighter destinies created atmospheres of shared excitement that transcended social barriers. Patricians and plebeians cheered together, united in appreciation for displays of martial skill and personal courage. This popular reaction immediately revealed the political potential of gladiatorial games as instruments for winning public favor. Ambitious politicians quickly recognized opportunities to connect directly with masses through spectacular entertainment rather than traditional patronage networks. Following the Brutus Games' success, other prominent Roman families began incorporating gladiatorial warfare into their funeral ceremonies. The practice spread rapidly among political elites, who recognized opportunities to surpass rivals through increasingly elaborate displays. Within 2 decades of the first Roman munus, funeral games had become expected elements of aristocratic burials, with families competing to sponsor the most memorable and spectacular contests. The evolution from private funeral rites to public entertainment accelerated during the 3rd and 2nd centuries BCE, as ambitious politicians discovered electoral advantages of sponsoring gladiatorial games. Rome's system of annual magistrates created intense competition among candidates seeking popular support. Gladiatorial spectacles provided effective means of reaching large voter numbers simultaneously. Unlike traditional political campaigning that relied on personal connections and patronage networks, gladiatorial performances appealed directly to masses and created lasting impressions of generosity and magnificence. This democratization of political influence through entertainment would fundamentally alter Roman society's power dynamics. Marcus Aemilius Scaurus exemplified this revolutionary approach to political advancement when he sponsored elaborate gladiatorial games during his consulship campaign in 115 BCE. Scaurus imported fighters from across the Mediterranean, including exotic combatants from Africa and Asia, who battled with unfamiliar weapons and techniques. His spectacles featured unprecedented variety. Nubian warriors wielding curved swords faced Germanic berserkers with battle axes, while Thracian fighters demonstrated their distinctive combat styles against heavily armored Gauls. These international matchups created excitement that purely local contests couldn't generate, establishing precedents for the increasingly elaborate spectacles that would define imperial Roman entertainment. The transformation was complete. What began as sacred Etruscan duty to nourish departed souls had evolved into Rome's most powerful political tool, capable of swaying elections and commanding popular loyalty. The arena had become the new battleground, where political careers were won and lost, and where the pulse of Roman civilization could be measured in the roar of bloodthirsty crowds. These magnificent spectacles stretched across 3 consecutive days, showcasing over 50 individual battles that established revolutionary standards for political entertainment. Scaurus's triumph in the consular elections was attributed primarily to the overwhelming popularity generated by his gladiatorial extravaganza, proving their devastating effectiveness as campaign instruments. This success forever changed Roman politics, demonstrating that bloodshed could buy votes more efficiently than traditional bribes or promises. The position of editor, the sponsor organizing gladiatorial spectacles, evolved into one of Rome's most crucial political roles. These editors shouldered complete responsibility for orchestrating, financing, and presenting games, making vital decisions regarding fighter quantities, equipment quality, and spectacle duration. Successful editors cultivated reputations for magnificence and shrewd judgment, while those sponsoring mediocre contests faced public humiliation and devastating political consequences. The financial burden of sponsoring gladiatorial entertainment created both tremendous opportunities and catastrophic risks for ambitious politicians. Wealthy families could exploit their resources to stage breathtaking events, generating massive popular support, but the expenses involved could financially devastate less fortunate candidates. A single day of premium gladiatorial warfare might cost equivalent to several years' income for moderately prosperous Romans, compelling many politicians to mortgage properties or borrow extensively to finance their spectacles. This economic pressure amplified competition among elites and fueled the growing extravagance of Roman political culture. Families bankrupted themselves pursuing electoral victory through increasingly expensive entertainments, creating cycles of debt and desperation that would plague Roman society for generations. The transformation of gladiatorial games from funeral observances to political instruments required substantial modifications to their organization and presentation. While preserving religious justifications of honoring deceased relatives, editors began scheduling contests to coincide with electoral campaigns, religious festivals, and other politically advantageous moments. The timing became as critical as content, with sponsors meticulously calculating optimal occasions to maximize political impact. Venues for gladiatorial warfare expanded beyond traditional funeral settings to accommodate massive audiences and elaborate productions. Temporary wooden amphitheaters arose throughout Rome, including Campus Martius, Forum Roman, and purpose-built locations on the city's outskirts. These structures featured increasingly sophisticated designs, with multiple seating tiers, protective barriers separating audiences from combatants, and underground facilities housing fighters and equipment. The professionalization of gladiatorial preparation emerged as natural response to growing demand for skilled warriors. The primitive system utilizing untrained prisoners and condemned criminals proved inadequate for delivering combat quality that Roman audiences demanded. Prosperous families and entrepreneurial investors began establishing formal training academies known as ludi, where combatants received systematic instruction in weapon mastery, fighting techniques, and arena performance. The lanista system developed as organizational framework for professional gladiatorial education. These entrepreneurial trainers purchased slaves, prisoners, and volunteers to assemble stable rosters of fighters available for hire to game sponsors. The most successful lanistae operated multiple academies and maintained hundreds of gladiators, developing reputations for producing warriors of exceptional skill and entertainment value. Cneius Cornelius Lentulus Batiatus, who would later achieve infamy through his association with Spartacus, exemplified this revolutionary breed of professional gladiatorial entrepreneur. His academy in Capua became legendary for producing some of Rome's most celebrated and feared arena warriors. Training regimens within gladiatorial academies combined military discipline with specialized combat instruction. Fresh recruits endured intensive physical conditioning to develop strength, endurance, and agility essential for arena warfare. They mastered fighting with various weapon combinations, perfecting techniques associated with different gladiatorial categories. Training encompassed not only combat abilities but also performance elements designed to captivate audiences, including dramatic gestures, crowd interaction, and theatrical displays of courage or defiance. The establishment of standardized gladiatorial categories reflected industry professionalization and desire to create varied yet predictable entertainment. The Samnite gladiator wielded traditional Italian equipment, including large rectangular shields, short swords, and distinctive helmets with towering crests. The Throex carried curved swords and small round shields characteristic of Thracian warriors, while Gauls brandished long swords and oval shields of Celtic combatants. Each category demanded specialized training and appealed to different audience preferences, enabling editors to construct diverse programs maintaining spectator engagement. The economic structure of gladiatorial industry grew increasingly complex as game scale and frequency expanded. Professional lanistae invested heavily in training facilities, equipment, and fighter acquisition, expecting cost recovery through rental fees charged to sponsors. The most valuable gladiators commanded premium prices, while novice fighters could be hired relatively cheaply. This pricing structure incentivized lanistae to develop their fighters' abilities and reputations, leading to superior performances and more captivating spectacles. The legal status of gladiators reflected complex social dynamics surrounding the profession. Most combatants were slaves possessing no legal rights who could be purchased, sold, or executed at owner's discretion. However, some gladiators were free volunteers entering the profession willingly, often motivated by financial desperation or fame desires. These auctorati signed contracts temporarily surrendering legal rights in exchange for payment, creating unique legal categories combining slavery and free employment elements. The relationship between gladiators and Roman society involved both fascination and contempt. While audiences admired skilled fighters and celebrated their victories, gladiators remained social outcasts, denied basic rights and privileges of Roman citizenship. They couldn't vote, hold public office, or marry into respectable families regardless of fame or arena success. This social stigma created paradoxes where Rome's most popular entertainers occupied society's lowest positions. Medical care provided to gladiators represented one of ancient healthcare's most advanced aspects. Professional gladiatorial academies employed skilled physicians specializing in treating combat injuries and maintaining fighter health. These doctors developed innovative surgical techniques, pain management methods, and rehabilitation programs, often surpassing medical care available to ordinary Roman citizens. The economic value of trained gladiators justified medical investment since healthy fighters generated more revenue than injured or deceased ones. Dietary requirements for gladiators differed significantly from typical Roman nutrition, emphasizing foods building strength and endurance while maintaining optimal fighting weight. Gladiatorial schools provided high-protein diets featuring meat, fish, eggs, and dairy products supplemented with grains, vegetables, and specialized training foods. Gladiatorial nutrition quality often exceeded that available to free Roman citizens, reflecting economic importance of maintaining fighter health and performance capabilities. The psychological aspects of gladiatorial preparation involve conditioning fighters to face death with courage and dignity, while preserving survival instincts. Trainers employed various techniques building mental toughness, including combat situation exposure, philosophical instruction about honor and duty, and religious ceremonies preparing fighters for potential death. This psychological conditioning created warriors who could perform with deadly efficiency while providing crowd-pleasing entertainment. The transformation was complete. What began as sacred obligation had evolved into sophisticated business enterprise, where human lives became commodities, traded for political advantage and popular entertainment. The arena had become Rome's most powerful industry, capable of making fortunes, ending careers, and shaping the empire's destiny through carefully choreographed displays of violence and skill. The most accomplished gladiators cultivated professional mindsets toward their lethal occupation, approaching each battle as skilled labor requiring expertise and dedication rather than emotional turmoil. These seasoned warriors understood that survival depended on maintaining clinical focus during combat, treating arena encounters as technical challenges requiring precise execution of learned techniques. The impact of gladiatorial spectacles on Roman political culture reached far beyond immediate entertainment value. The expectation that political candidates would finance games generated pressure for increasingly extravagant displays, inflating political career costs and restricting opportunities for citizens of modest means. This dynamic accelerated political power concentration among wealthy elites, while diminishing the Roman Republic's democratic character. The geographical spread of gladiatorial entertainment throughout Roman territories followed patterns of political and military conquest. As Roman dominance expanded across the Mediterranean, local aristocrats in conquered regions embraced gladiatorial games as symbols of integration into Roman culture and demonstrations of loyalty to Roman principles. This cultural transmission established gladiatorial warfare as a unifying element of Roman civilization, creating shared experiences and expectations across diverse populations and territories. The sophisticated gladiatorial system emerging during the late Republican era represented far more than chaotic violence. It constituted meticulously orchestrated choreography of death, where each combatant's role was precisely defined by equipment, preparation, and tactical methodology. The progression from primitive funeral battles to refined arena performances required developing specialized gladiatorial categories. each engineered to exploit specific advantages while creating vulnerabilities opponents could target. This systematic approach to combat entertainment reached its zenith in strategic pairing of gladiators, whose contrasting styles generated maximum dramatic tension and tactical complexity. These matchups transformed simple fights into sophisticated tactical engagements that captivated audiences through their strategic depth and unpredictable outcomes. The most legendary and strategically sophisticated confrontation in gladiatorial history matched the retiarius against the secutor, a pairing embodying fundamental tension between mobility and protection, range and power. This matchup became the signature spectacle of Roman arenas, representing the pinnacle of gladiatorial tactical design. The retiarius, literally meaning net fighter, entered arenas virtually unprotected, except for a subligaculum loincloth and protective manica covering his left arm and shoulder. His primary arsenal included a weighted net, approximately 12 feet square with lead weights sewn into edges, a three-pronged trident measuring roughly 6 feet in length, and a curved Pugio dagger worn at his belt as emergency backup. This minimal equipment configuration prioritized velocity, nimbleness, and striking distance over defensive capabilities. Retiarius combat methodology centered on maintaining separation while deploying nets to entangle and neutralize opponents. The weighted net edges could deliver stunning impacts when swung with adequate force, while the mesh itself could trap weapons, limbs, or entire adversaries if skillfully deployed. The trident served multiple tactical functions. Its extended reach enabled safe distance maintenance, while probing for vulnerabilities. Its three prongs could intercept and deflect incoming sword attacks, and its sharp points could inflict severe wounds if opponents became entangled or exposed. The curved dagger provided final resort for close-quarters engagement when primary weapons proved ineffective. This backup weapon required different fighting techniques entirely, forcing retiaria to master multiple combat disciplines within single encounters. Retiarius' tactical methodology demanded exceptional footwork and spatial intelligence. These combatants trained extensively in lateral movement, backward maneuvering, and rapid directional shifts to avoid opponent charges while maintaining optimal striking range. The most skilled retiarii could cast nets with remarkable precision, targeting specific body parts or weapon arms to create immediate tactical superiority. Net recovery following missed throws demanded split-second timing, as fighters had to retrieve primary weapons while defending with only tridents and daggers. This vulnerability period represented the most dangerous moments for retiarii, requiring perfect coordination between offensive and defensive actions. The secutor, whose designation meant pursuer or chaser, was specifically engineered to counter retiarius' tactical advantages through heavy armor and aggressive pursuit strategies. Secutor helmet design represented masterpieces of functional engineering. Smooth, rounded surfaces featured minimal protrusions that could snare nets, while small eye holes limited peripheral vision but prevented trident prongs from penetrating face guards. The helmet's distinctive fish-scale crest served both decorative and practical purposes, deflecting net weights while permitting airflow for cooling. This design element demonstrated how gladiatorial equipment balanced aesthetic appeal with combat functionality. Secutor body protection included heavy rectangular shields measuring approximately 4 feet in height and 2.5 feet in width, constructed from laminated wood strips covered with leather and reinforced with metal edging. These shields provided comprehensive torso and leg protection, while serving as offensive weapons for shield punches and battering attacks. Fighters wore manicae on sword arms, padded leg protection on left legs, and carried short gladio optimized for thrusting attacks in close quarters. The strategic dynamics between retiarius and secutor created compelling tactical puzzles varying with each encounter. Secutor primary objectives involved closing distance rapidly while avoiding or deflecting net attacks, then exploiting superior armor and close-quarters weaponry to overwhelm lightly protected opponents. This required aggressive forward movement combined with defensive shield work to deflect trident strikes and avoid net entanglement. Successful secutors developed techniques for cutting or tearing nets with sword edges while advancing, transforming retiarius' primary weapons into liabilities. These tactics required precise timing and exceptional courage, as failed attempts left secutors vulnerable to trident attacks while tangled in nets. Retiari countered these strategies through superior mobility and range management, utilizing arena space to maintain optimal fighting distances while exhausting heavily armored opponents. The weight of secutor equipment created endurance disadvantages that skilled retiari could exploit through prolonged engagements. These fighters learned to target exposed areas like sword arms, necks, or legs with precise trident strikes while using nets to control combat pace and distance. The psychological warfare element proved equally important, as retiari sought to frustrate and exhaust opponents through constant movement and evasive tactics. Heavily armored gladiatorial categories represented different tactical philosophies, emphasizing protection and close-quarters combat over mobility and range. The murmillo derived his designation from the distinctive fish-shaped crest adorning his helmet, which featured broad brims deflecting downward strikes and face guards with adequate eye holes for peripheral vision. Murmillo equipment closely resembled Roman legionary gear, including large rectangular secutor, short gladii, and comprehensive arm and leg protection. This gladiatorial category appealed to Roman military pride and represented citizen-soldier ideals in arena combat, connecting spectators emotionally to fighters through familiar military imagery. Murmillo fighting methodology emphasized disciplined shield work and systematic sword techniques, derived from Roman military training. These combatants excelled at defensive positioning, using large shields to create protected zones, while probing for openings with measured sword strikes. Murmillo preparation included formation fighting techniques, adapted for single combat, such as shield binding and systematic advance patterns, maintaining defensive integrity while closing distance. The tactical approach of murmillones relied heavily on endurance and methodical pressure rather than explosive attacks or dramatic maneuvers. These fighters trained to maintain consistent performance throughout extended battles, using superior protection to absorb punishment, while gradually wearing down opponents through accumulated damage. Murmillo sword work emphasized thrusting attacks, delivered from behind shield cover, targeting vital areas with precise economical movements conserving energy while maximizing damage potential. This methodical approach reflected Roman military doctrine, translated into arena entertainment, demonstrating how gladiatorial combat served as both spectacle and military training demonstration. The sophistication of these tactical systems revealed gladiatorial combat's evolution from crude sacrifice to refined martial art, where every piece of equipment, every fighting technique, and every strategic pairing served specific purposes in creating the ultimate entertainment spectacle that would define Roman culture for centuries to come. The Thraques, embodying combat traditions from Thrace, displayed remarkably different tactical characteristics, despite comparable armor protection levels. The Thrake's helmet showcased distinctive griffin or sphinx crests and wide brim construction, providing exceptional defense against overhead attacks. The most recognizable element of Thrake's equipment was the curved Thracian blade, measuring approximately 2 feet in length, with pronounced forward curvature that concentrated cutting force while enabling strikes around shield edges. The Thraques wielded small square or circular shields measuring roughly 2 feet in diameter, considerably smaller than the murmillo's scutum. This reduced shield dimensions reflected Thrake's emphasis on offensive aggression and maneuverability over purely defensive strategies. Fighters wore elevated greaves extending above knees on both legs, providing comprehensive lower body protection compensating for smaller shield coverage. Combat techniques utilized by Thraces exploited curved sword properties through slashing assaults, bypassing conventional shield defenses. The weapon's configuration allowed hooking movements that could displace opponent shields or snare weapon arms, generating opportunities for follow-up strikes. Thraces trained intensively in close-quarters grappling and weapon binding, using curved blade shapes to trap and control adversary weapons while delivering decisive blows. The tactical philosophy of Thraces emphasized aggressive offensive action, supported by enhanced mobility and weapon adaptability. These combatants excelled at creating and exploiting momentary vulnerabilities through rapid strike combinations, feints, and positional transitions. The smaller shield demanded exceptional timing and spatial intelligence, as Thrake's fighters had to actively intercept attacks rather than depending on passive protection. This dynamic defensive methodology enabled immediate counterattacks, but required superior skill levels and reaction capabilities. The active engagement style made Thrake's battles particularly exciting for audiences who appreciated technical proficiency and tactical innovation. The hoplomachus represented Greek military heritage within Roman arena systems, armed with spears as primary weapons, supplemented by short swords for close quarters engagement. Hoplomachus helmets featured distinctive crests and facial protection resembling Greek hoplite equipment. Small round shields measured approximately 3 feet in diameter, while elevated greaves protected both legs and manichae-covered weapon arms, creating comprehensive protection for fighters whose strategies relied on maintaining optimal spear range. Spear techniques employed by hoplomachi drew directly from Greek phalanx fighting traditions, adapted for individual combat. These warriors trained in various spear grips and attack angles, using 8-foot weapon lengths to control distance while delivering powerful thrusting assaults. Spear versatility allowed sweeping strikes against opponent legs, overhead attacks targeting heads and shoulders, and defensive techniques deflecting or binding adversary weapons. Tactical challenges facing hoplomachi centered on managing transitions between spear and sword combat when opponents successfully closed distance. These fighters developed sophisticated techniques using shields and spears together, creating defensive barriers while maintaining offensive capabilities. The most skilled hoplomachi could seamlessly transition between weapons, using spear shafts for close-quarter strikes and grappling, while drawing swords for final combat phases. Specialized gladiatorial categories represented arena system capacity for innovation and spectacle beyond traditional infantry warfare. Equits introduced mounted combat into amphitheaters, fighting on horseback with spears, swords, and small round shields. These contests typically commenced with mounted phases where combatants engaged in cavalry tactics, including charging attacks, wheeling maneuvers, and projectile exchanges. Confined arena spaces, limited tactical options available to mounted fighters, often forcing dismounting and continued combat on foot using modified infantry techniques. Equipment and preparation requirements for equits exceeded other gladiatorial types due to mounted combat complexity. These combatants needed exceptional horsemanship abilities combined with weapon proficiency, as controlling horses while engaging in warfare demanded years of specialized preparation. The horses themselves required conditioning for arena combat, becoming accustomed to crowds, noise, and violent encounter stress. The most valuable equaria developed partnerships with specific horses, creating mounted teams executing complex tactical maneuvers with precise timing. Esdari recreated British chariot warfare within Roman arenas, providing audiences exotic combat spectacles, showcasing military traditions of recently conquered territories. These fighters operated 2-man chariots with one individual serving as driver, while the other fought with spears, swords, and shields. Tactical complexity of chariot combat required exceptional coordination between team members, as driver skill directly influenced fighter tactical options and survival chances. Chariot fighting techniques employed by Esdari included high-speed passes with spear attacks, ramming maneuvers designed to overturn opponent chariots, and dismounted combat when chariots became disabled or tactical situations required ground fighting. Confined arena space created unique tactical challenges for chariot fighters who had to execute complex maneuvers within limited areas while avoiding barriers and maintaining combat effectiveness. Training regimens for Esdari encompassed both individual fighting skills and team coordination exercises. Drivers practiced precise maneuvering under combat conditions, learning to position chariots for optimal attack angles while avoiding opponent strikes and maintaining vehicle control. Fighters developed techniques for combat from moving platforms, including balance training allowing effective weapon use while standing in bouncing, turning chariots. The retiarius represented ultimate expression of offensive gladiatorial combat, fighting with 2 swords simultaneously instead of using shields for protection. These combatants wore minimal armor, typically limited to arm guards and leg protection, relying entirely on weapon skill and mobility for survival. Dual sword fighting styles required exceptional ambidextrous training, as fighters had to coordinate attacks and defenses with both hands, while maintaining proper footwork and positioning. Weapons employed by Democeri varied depending on specific training and tactical preferences. Some used matched pairs of gladiators, while others combined different sword types, creating varied attack patterns and tactical options. The most skilled Democeri fighters could execute simultaneous attacks with both weapons, creating offensive combinations overwhelming opponent defensive capabilities through sheer volume and strike complexity. Tactical approaches of Democeri emphasized constant offensive pressure combined with superior mobility to avoid counterattacks. These combatants trained extensively in combination attacks, using one sword to bind or deflect opponent weapons while striking with the other. Shield protection absence required exceptional timing and spatial awareness, as any defensive mistake could result in immediate fatal consequences. Strategic pairing of different gladiatorial types created dramatic tension, making arena combats compelling entertainment for Roman audiences. Matchmaking processes considered not only tactical interactions between different fighting styles, but also entertainment value of specific combinations and relative skill levels of individual fighters. The most popular pairings created clear tactical narratives audiences could follow and appreciate, such as classic confrontations between mobility and protection, or clashes between offensive aggression and defensive discipline. Editor selection of gladiatorial pairings reflected sophisticated understanding of combat dynamics and audience psychology. Successful matchups balanced competitive equality with tactical interest, ensuring both fighters had realistic victory chances while creating compelling strategic situations. The most memorable contests often featured combatants whose styles created natural dramatic tension, forcing both fighters to adapt tactics and demonstrate full skill ranges. The evolution of gladiatorial pairing strategies reflected increasing sophistication of arena entertainment and growing expertise of Lannister and editors in creating compelling spectacles. Early Republican games featured relatively simple matchups based primarily on ethnic or regional fighting traditions, while later contests incorporated complex tactical considerations and psychological factors designed to maximize audience engagement and emotional investment in outcomes. The transformation of gladiatorial combat from temporary wooden stages to permanent stone monuments began with recognition that these spectacles had become essential elements of Roman political and social life. Construction of the Flavian amphitheater, known today as the Colosseum, represented culmination of centuries of architectural evolution and engineering innovation that transformed arena entertainment into precise science of crowd management, theatrical presentation, and mechanical sophistication. Flavian amphitheater construction commenced under Emperor Vespasian around 70 CE on the site of Nero's artificial lake within the Domus Aurea complex. This location choice carried profound political symbolism, or the despised emperor's private pleasure ground would be transformed into public venues where ordinary Roman citizens could witness spectacular entertainment. The project required draining the lake, excavating foundations to approximately 40 feet below ground level, and establishing complex drainage systems preventing flooding during Rome's frequent winter rains. The amphitheater's elliptical design measured 620 feet in length, 513 feet in width, and rose to 157 feet through 4 distinct architectural stories. Exterior facades employed systematic arrangements of architectural orders, Doric columns on ground levels, Ionic on second stories, and Corinthian on third, with Corinthian pilasters adorning fourth levels. This progression created visual harmony while demonstrating Roman mastery of Greek architectural principles adapted for monumental purposes. The Colosseum represented not just architectural achievement, but the ultimate expression of gladiatorial evolution, from sacred Etruscan blood offerings to the greatest entertainment spectacle the ancient world had ever witnessed. The structural engineering of the Flavian amphitheater relied on revolutionary load-bearing innovations that distributed massive building weight through intricate systems of radial walls, barrel vaults, and cross vaults constructed from Roman concrete. The foundation utilized enormous travertine blocks quarried from Tivoli, while upper levels employed lighter tufa stone and brick to minimize overall structural stress. Extensive concrete usage enabled creation of vast interior spaces without requiring dense column forests that would have blocked sightlines. This engineering breakthrough transformed arena construction possibilities, allowing architects to prioritize spectator experience over structural limitations. The arena floor measured approximately 287 feet by 180 feet, covered with wooden flooring overlaid with sand to absorb blood and provide secure footing for combatants. Beneath this surface lay the hypogeum, an elaborate underground complex representing perhaps the most sophisticated ancient entertainment technology ever constructed. This subterranean labyrinth extended 2 levels below arena floor and contained intricate networks of corridors, chambers, storage areas, and mechanical systems designed to support complex gladiatorial game logistics. The hypogeum's design incorporated 32 animal lifts strategically positioned around arena perimeter, each capable of raising wild beasts, gladiators, or elaborate stage sets from underground chambers to arena level through trapdoors concealed beneath sand. These lifts operated through counterweight systems, allowing relatively small worker numbers to raise extremely heavy loads with precise timing. The most sophisticated lifts could elevate entire stage sets complete with artificial trees, rocks, and architectural elements to create elaborate hunting scenarios or mythological tableaux. Underground chambers of the hypogeum included specialized holding areas for different performer and animal categories. Gladiators awaited contests in secure cells equipped with basic amenities, while exotic animals occupied reinforced cages designed to contain everything from lions and tigers to elephants and rhinoceros. Animal holding areas featured sophisticated drainage systems, feeding mechanisms, and ventilation shafts maintaining adequate air quality in confined underground spaces. Mechanical systems within the hypogeum extended beyond simple lifts to include complex stage machinery capable of creating dramatic scenic effects. Retractable barriers could be raised or lowered to divide arenas into separate combat zones, while concealed water channels allowed flooding of arena floor portions for normakiers or naval battle recreations. Engineering challenges of creating watertight seals at required scales demanded innovative solutions using lead sheets, hydraulic cement, and precisely fitted stone joints. These technological advances demonstrated Roman engineering superiority and their commitment to spectacular entertainment production. The arena's capacity to stage an major represented one of its most impressive technical achievements. These naval battle recreations required flooding arenas to depth sufficient for small warships, while maintaining structural integrity and ensuring adequate drainage afterward. Water supply came from dedicated aqueduct branches, delivering thousands of gallons per minute, while drainage occurred through large outlets connected to Rome's sewer system. Logistics of bringing actual warships into arenas required disassembling vessels outside amphitheaters, transporting components through underground passages, and reassembling them within flooded arenas. This complex operation demonstrated the extraordinary lengths Romans would pursue for entertainment spectacle. Seating arrangements within the Flavian amphitheater reflected and reinforced Roman social hierarchy through carefully structured systems, placing each spectator according to social status and legal standing. The podium, the lowest seating tier, was reserved for senators, magistrates, and other high-ranking officials who occupied marble seats with individual armrests and back supports. This section featured the imperial box, an elaborate marble pavilion where emperors and immediate families watched games, while protected by praetorian guards and separated from general populations. The Manianum Primum contained seats for equestrian-class wealthy citizens, meeting specific property requirements but lacking senatorial rank. These wooden seats with basic cushions provided excellent arena views while maintaining clear social distinction from senatorial sections below. Equestrian sections included reserved areas for specific groups such as military tribunes, wealthy freedmen, and foreign dignitaries whose status warranted special recognition but remained outside formal Roman aristocracy. The Manianum Secundum accommodated ordinary Roman citizens divided into lower and upper sections based on economic status and social standing. Lower portions housed prosperous plebeians, skilled craftsmen, and successful merchants who could afford better seats, while upper sections contained poorer citizens receiving free admission but occupying least desirable viewing positions. Wooden benches in these sections lacked individual armrests and provided minimal comfort during lengthy programs extending from dawn to dusk. The manianum summum at amphitheater's highest level was reserved for women, slaves, and foreigners permitted attendance, but occupying most distant seats from action. This section included separate areas for women of senatorial and equestrian families, who were segregated from men, but maintained social distinctions even within gender-restricted seating. Architectural design ensured even these distant seats provided adequate arena views, though individual combat details became difficult to distinguish from such heights. Legal frameworks governing amphitheater seating arrangements stemmed from Augustus's Lex Julia Theatralis, which codified social distinctions within entertainment venues and established penalties for seating protocol violations. This legislation designated specific sections for different social classes while creating enforcement mechanisms including fines, public humiliation, and temporary game banishment for those attempting to occupy seats above their station. Law provisions extended beyond simple social ranking to address complex situations involving mixed marriages, freed slaves, and foreign visitors whose status required careful evaluation. Seating regulation enforcement required substantial administrative apparatus, including ushers, guards, and officials responsible for verifying spectator credentials and directing them to appropriate sections. These personnel wore distinctive uniforms, identifying their authority, and carried documentation establishing each spectator's seating entitlement. System complexity increased during major festivals when attendance swelled beyond normal capacity and temporary seating arrangements required additional oversight and crowd control measures. Amphitheater crowd control systems extended beyond seating arrangements to encompass entry and exit procedures designed to manage up to 50,000 spectator movements safely and efficiently. Buildings featured 80 ground-level entrances, each numbered and designated for specific seating sections to prevent confusion and overcrowding. Entrance systems allowed entire amphitheaters to fill or empty within approximately 15 minutes. Remarkable achievements given the era's limited crowd dynamics understanding and modern safety protocol absence. Regional amphitheaters constructed throughout the Roman Empire adapted Flavian amphitheater innovations to local conditions, resources, and audience sizes, while maintaining essential features defining Roman arena entertainment. The amphitheater at Capua, traditionally considered gladiatorial school birthplace, predated the Colosseum by several decades and served as testing ground for many architectural and mechanical innovations later incorporated into Roman structures. Capuan Amphitheatre measured approximately 560 feet by 460 feet, making it the second largest in the Roman world after the Flavian Amphitheatre. Its underground complex, while less elaborate than Rome's Hypogeum, included animal holding areas, gladiator preparation chambers, and mechanical lifts capable of delivering performers and stage elements to arena floors. Building proximity to major gladiatorial schools made it a natural venue for training exhibitions and professional development opportunities for fighters preparing for careers in larger venues. The amphitheatre at Pompeii, preserved by Mount Vesuvius's volcanic eruption in 79 CE, provides the most complete archaeological evidence of provincial arena construction and operation. Built around 70 BCE, this structure represents one of the earliest permanent stone amphitheatres and demonstrates rapid gladiatorial architecture spread throughout Roman territories. Building capacity of approximately 20,000 spectators served city populations of roughly 15,000, indicating games drew audiences from surrounding communities and represented major regional entertainment events. Pompeian amphitheatre design reflected local adaptations of Roman architectural principles, including natural hillside contour usage to reduce construction costs and provide stable foundations for seating tiers. Arena floors measured 230 feet by 115 feet, the smaller than major metropolitan venues, but adequate for standard gladiatorial contest ranges and animal hunts. Underground areas, while limited compared to later developments, included basic holding facilities and storage areas supporting provincial game logistical requirements. Social dynamics revealed by Pompeian graffiti and inscriptions provide insights into gladiatorial game cultural impact on provincial communities. Spectators carved favorite gladiator names into seats, recorded memorable contests, and expressed opinions about specific fighter skills and attractiveness. These informal records demonstrate gladiatorial culture penetrated deeply into local society, creating shared experiences and common reference points, transcending social and economic boundaries. The amphitheatre at Newmes in southern Gaul exemplifies Roman arena architecture adaptation to provincial conditions and gladiatorial entertainment integration into Celtic cultural traditions. Constructed during the late 1st century CE, this building served Nemesis territory capital and provided venues where Romanized Celtic elites could demonstrate cultural sophistication and political loyalty through traditional Roman spectacle sponsorship. From Etruscan blood sacrifice to architectural marvels, housing 50,000 screaming spectators, the evolution was complete. Gladiatorial combat had become the ultimate expression of Roman power, engineering prowess, and cultural dominance across 3 continents. The Nîmes amphitheatre's architectural elements merged Roman engineering mastery with local building resources and construction techniques. The exterior facade utilized regional limestone quarried from nearby deposits, while interior spaces employed Roman concrete and brick construction for structural components demanding maximum strength and durability. Building capacity of approximately 24,000 spectators established it as one of the largest provincial amphitheatres, reflecting surrounding region prosperity and population density. This massive venue demonstrated how gladiatorial culture had spread far beyond Rome's borders, taking root in distant provinces where local elites competed to display their Roman sophistication. The arena at LDJM in North Africa represents the pinnacle of provincial amphitheatre construction, demonstrating the extent to which gladiatorial culture had penetrated even the most remote corners of the Roman Empire. Built during the 3rd century CE, this colossal structure rivaled the Flavian amphitheatre in scale and sophistication, while serving the relatively modest city of Thistros in modern Tunisia. LDJM amphitheatre dimensions of 492 feet by 407 feet, and capacity of approximately 35,000 spectators, created venues accommodating audiences drawn from across North Africa. Building construction required importing specialized craftsmen and materials from across the Mediterranean, demonstrating economic resources available to provincial elites and their commitment to maintaining Roman cultural standards, even in distant territories. Underground complexes at LDJM included sophisticated animal handling facilities designed to accommodate exotic African wildlife forming major attractions of North African games. These chambers featured specialized cages for lions, leopards, elephants, and other dangerous animals, along with mechanical systems necessary to deliver them to arena floors safely and dramatically. Engineering challenges of creating secure animal facilities in desert climates required innovative ventilation and cooling systems, maintaining adequate conditions for both animals and human workers. The technical sophistication rivaled anything found in Rome itself, proving that provincial architects could match imperial standards when resources allowed. Innovative features developed across Roman amphitheatre networks included retractable awning systems known as velaria, providing shade and weather protection for spectators. These massive canvas covers required complex rigging systems operated by teams of sailors borrowed from the Roman Navy, whose ship sail experience translated directly to managing amphitheatre fabric roofs. Velarium at the Flavian amphitheatre employed 240 wooden masts and required crews of approximately 1,000 men to deploy and adjust according to weather conditions and sun angles. These engineering marvels demonstrated Roman commitment to spectator comfort and their willingness to invest enormous resources in entertainment infrastructure. Water systems integrated into major amphitheatres extended beyond simple drainage to include decorative fountains, drinking facilities, and infrastructure necessary for Nomachia presentations. These hydraulic networks required sophisticated engineering balancing water pressure, flow rates, and drainage capacity, while maintaining structural integrity and preventing flooding during heavy rains or mechanical failures. The amphitheatres that had become symbols of Roman power and entertainment would witness their most dramatic challenge, not from external enemies but from the very performers who had filled them with blood and spectacle. The Third Servile War erupted in spring 73 BCE at the gladiatorial school of Lentulus Batiatus in Capua, transforming what began as desperate escape attempt into the largest slave rebellion in Roman history. Revolt origins lay in harsh conditions and brutal treatment characterizing even the most prestigious gladiatorial establishments, where fighters trained under constant death threats while generating enormous profits for owners. Lentulus Batiatus operated one of Capua's most successful gladiatorial schools, housing approximately 200 fighters and fortified compounds, combining training facilities, living quarters, and security measures designed to prevent escapes. School reputation rested on producing skilled gladiators commanding premium prices in arenas throughout southern Italy. Batiatus invested heavily in equipment, training, and medical care for fighters, but this business-minded approach coexisted with fundamental reality that gladiators remained property to be exploited, punished, and ultimately sacrificed for entertainment. Conditions within Batiatus's school reflected contradictions inherent in gladiatorial systems. Fighters received adequate nutrition, professional medical care, and systematic combat training, often exceeding preparation available to Roman soldiers. However, they lived under constant surveillance, faced severe punishments for minor infractions, and new survival depended entirely on their ability to entertain audiences viewing them as expendable performers. Psychological pressure of this existence, combined with physical demands of constant training and periodic combat, created environments where desperation and resentment simmered beneath surfaces of apparent prosperity. The breaking point came when fighters realized their celebrity status meant nothing if they remained slaves. Spartacus emerged as rebellion's primary leader through combinations of military experience, personal charisma, and tactical intelligence, distinguishing him from fellow gladiators. Historical sources describe him as Thracian who had served in Roman auxiliary forces before being captured and enslaved. Though exact enslavement circumstances remain unclear, his military background provided crucial knowledge of Roman tactical methods, organizational structures, and strategic thinking, proving invaluable in transforming prison breaks into sustained military campaigns. Initial escape plans involved approximately 70 gladiators selected for execution or particularly harsh punishment, making situations desperate enough to justify enormous rebellion risks. Conspirators included fighters from various ethnic backgrounds and gladiatorial specializations, creating diverse groups with different combat skills and military experiences. Crixus, Celtic gladiator known for murmillo skills, brought knowledge of Celtic warfare tactics and experience fighting Roman forces in Gaul. Oenomaus, another Celtic fighter, contributed additional military expertise and helped coordinate diverse rebel groups during crucial early revolt stages. Escape itself occurred when gladiators overpowered guards during training sessions, seizing weapons from school armories and fighting their way out of compounds. Rebels initially armed themselves with gladiatorial equipment including swords, shields, and armor, but quickly supplemented these weapons with kitchen knives, tools, and improvised weapons, providing additional combat capability. Successful breakouts required precise timing and coordination, as gladiators had to neutralize multiple guard positions simultaneously, while preventing survivors from raising alarms, bringing immediate Roman military responses. The operation demonstrated tactical sophistication that would characterize the entire rebellion. Immediate escape aftermath demonstrated rebels' understanding that survival depended on rapid expansion and strategic mobility, rather than attempting to hold fixed positions. Gladiators moved quickly to Mount Vesuvius, approximately 20 miles southeast of Capua, where volcanic terrain provided natural defensive advantages and multiple escape routes if Roman forces attempted encirclement. Mountain slopes offered caves for shelter, springs for water, and elevated positions allowing rebels to observe approaching enemies while remaining concealed from Roman scouts. The strategic position proved perfect for launching the guerrilla campaign that would terrorize southern Italy. Rebels' initial military strategy focused on guerrilla warfare tactics, exploiting superior local terrain knowledge and opponents' overconfidence. Spartacus and fellow leaders recognized direct confrontation with Roman legions would result in immediate defeat, so they adopted hit-and-run tactics designed to inflict casualties while avoiding decisive battles. These operations targeted isolated Roman patrols, supply convoys, and small garrisons, allowing rebels to acquire additional weapons and equipment, while demonstrating military capabilities to potential recruits. Each victory proved that Romans were not invincible, encouraging more slaves to join the growing rebellion. Recruitment of additional followers occurred through combinations of military success and appeals to widespread discontent among slaves, rural laborers, and dispossessed farmers throughout southern Italy. Rebel victories against Roman forces created reputations for invincibility, attracting desperate individuals seeking escape from poverty, debt, or slavery. Gladiators' professional military skills and proven combat effectiveness provided credibility, distinguishing this rebellion from previous slave uprisings, quickly suppressed by Roman authorities. This was no random violence. This was organized warfare led by trained killers who understood exactly how to hurt Rome where it mattered most. Spartacus' army composition evolved rapidly from gladiatorial origins to encompass diverse coalitions of the dispossessed and marginalized. Rural slaves working large agricultural estates formed the largest single recruit groups, bringing knowledge of local geography and supply sources, along with deep resentment against Roman masters. Shepherds and herdsmen contributed mobility and familiarity with mountain terrain, while urban slaves provided technical skills and intelligence about Roman military preparations and political responses to rebellions. The rebels' military organization reflected Spartacus' understanding of Roman tactical principles adapted for irregular warfare. Armies were divided into specialized units based on ethnic background and combat experience, allowing each group to fight according to traditional methods while maintaining overall coordination. Celtic and Germanic fighters formed heavy infantry units, armed with captured Roman equipment, while Thracian and other Balkan fighters specialized in light infantry tactics, emphasizing mobility and harassment. Former gladiators served as elite shock troops whose professional combat skills provided crucial advantages in close-quarters fighting. Tactical innovations employed by Spartacus' forces demonstrated sophisticated understanding of both conventional and irregular warfare principles. Rebels developed techniques for coordinating multiple small units in complex operations using signal systems and predetermined rally points, maintaining communication across extended battlefields. They perfected ambush tactics, maximizing casualties while minimizing exposure, often using decoy forces to lure Roman units into prepared killing zones, where concealed fighters could attack from multiple directions simultaneously. What had begun in the blood-soaked sands of a gladiatorial school was becoming something far more dangerous. That a professional army led by men who had learned to kill for entertainment, now applying those deadly skills against the empire that had enslaved them. The ultimate gladiatorial contest was about to begin, with Rome itself as the arena. Rebel triumphs in several initial confrontations against Roman legions sent tremors throughout the Republic's political hierarchy, proving the genuine military danger presented by this uprising. The destruction of Praetor Claudius Glaber's troops on Mount Vesuvius delivered the rebellion's first significant triumph and cemented Spartacus's standing as competent military strategist. Glaber had deployed his soldiers to seal the mountain's primary access paths, certain the insurgents could be starved into surrender without demanding direct confrontation. Nevertheless, Spartacus warriors descended the peak's treacherous rear cliffs using cables braided from vineyard tendrils, encircling behind Roman formations and executing surprise assaults that scattered Glaber's unprepared forces. This triumph supplied rebels with enormous quantities of military hardware, including professional armaments, protective gear, and provisions, transforming them from desperate escapees into credible military organization. Captured equipment enabled Spartacus to outfit additional volunteers with standardized weaponry, while providing core gladiatorial combatants with enhanced gear, amplifying their already remarkable fighting prowess. The psychological consequences of vanquishing a Roman praetor resonated across southern Italy, inspiring additional bondsmen and displaced cultivators to join the insurrection, while proving Roman military dominance was not absolute. The destruction of Praetor Publius Varinius's larger contingent near Mount Vesuvius confirmed rebel military excellence and compelled Roman leadership to acknowledge the threat's gravity. Varinius had mobilized a more considerable army, incorporating regular legionary divisions and auxiliary contingents, confident that professional Roman soldiers could effortlessly crush a mob of escaped captives. However, Spartacus's strategic brilliance and his followers' desperate determination proved superior to Roman arrogance and traditional methods. Rebels utilized superior agility to evade direct engagement, while launching synchronized strikes against isolated Roman detachments, progressively weakening Varinius's forces through cumulative losses and demoralization. The strategic genius lay not in brute force, but in understanding how to turn Roman strengths into vulnerabilities. Rebellion expansion throughout southern Italy during 73 and 72 BCE demonstrated widespread social friction and economic grievances. The slave revolt had unleashed. Rebel military achievements encouraged bondsman revolts on individual properties, urban disturbances in several municipalities, and bandit emergence claiming association with Spartacus movement. This broader unrest pattern threatened Roman governance stability throughout the territory and forced authorities to redirect substantial military assets from other priorities to address the escalating crisis. What began as a prison break had evolved into systematic challenge to Roman power structure itself. Internal dynamics within rebel armies revealed friction between different strategic methods and long-term goals, ultimately contributing to rebellion failure. Spartacus promoted strategic withdrawal from Italy, contending rebels should traverse the Alps and return to homelands where they could exist as free individuals beyond Roman influence. This approach reflected his comprehension that rebellion could not ultimately overcome the Roman Republic's complete military strength and survival required escaping Roman domain entirely. His was the voice of pragmatic wisdom born from understanding Rome's true power. Crixus and numerous Celtic combatants disagreed with Spartacus' strategic evaluation, preferring to remain in Italy where they could continue damaging Roman interests while enlisting additional supporters. The Gauls' choice reflected both confidence in their military abilities and hunger for vengeance against Roman oppression. This strategic disagreement resulted in rebel army division, with Crixus commanding approximately 30,000 followers and continued operations throughout southern Italy, while Spartacus proceeded northward with remaining forces. The separation provided Roman commanders opportunities to defeat them individually through concentrated attacks against divided adversaries. Marcus Licinius Crassus, who assumed control of Roman operations against rebellion in 72 BCE, recognized divided rebel army presented tactical opportunities, absent when Spartacus maintained unified leadership. Crassus possessed military experience, financial resources, and political motivation necessary to organize effective campaigns against insurgents. Having served with distinction during Sulla's civil conflicts and accumulated substantial wealth through real estate speculation and slave commerce, Crassus' approach to suppressing rebellion combined traditional Roman military methods with innovative tactics designed specifically to counter rebel guerrilla warfare strategies. He assembled armies of 8 legions, approximately 40,000 troops, including veteran soldiers and newly enlisted personnel, whose training emphasized discipline and coordination necessary for operations against irregular forces. Army composition included substantial auxiliary troops from allied communities, providing specialized archery, cavalry operations, and siege warfare skills complementing legion heavy infantry capabilities. Roman military response under Crassus emphasized systematic operations designed to eliminate rebel tactical advantages while forcing them into decisive battles where Roman numerical and organizational superiority could prove conclusive. Crassus divided forces into multiple columns operating independently while maintaining mutual support, allowing simultaneous pressure against different rebel groups while preventing Spartacus from concentrating forces for major engagements. This approach required sophisticated logistics and communication systems, demonstrating Roman military organizational capabilities and professional competence. The methodical strangulation of rebel freedom of movement represented warfare evolution, not just brute force but calculated strategic suffocation. Crixus's forces, defeated by Crassus's lieutenant Arius near Mount Garganus, eliminated approximately 1/3 of rebel army and provided Romans their first major campaign victory. Crixus's death in this battle deprived rebellion of one of its most capable military commanders, while demonstrating Roman forces could defeat rebel armies when they abandoned guerrilla tactics for conventional warfare. Victory provided substantial propaganda benefits for Roman authorities while reducing military threat posed by rebellion. The symbolic importance of killing a gladiator-turned-general could not be overstated in Roman political calculations. The Spartacus response to Crixus' defeat demonstrated both tactical flexibility and understanding of psychological dimensions of military leadership. Rather than retreating immediately, he organized a memorial ceremony for fallen Celtic leader, including gladiatorial contests featuring captured Roman prisoners. This event served multiple purposes, honoring Crixus according to traditional funeral customs, providing entertainment and emotional release for a rebel army, and demonstrating contempt for Roman authority through symbolic reversal of gladiatorial roles. Former slaves now watched Romans die for their amusement, the ultimate inversion of power dynamics. Rebel continued northward movement through central Italy during 72 BCE created panic in Rome as Spartacus' army approached capital region. Proximity of hostile force capable of defeating Roman armies generated fears of direct assault on city itself, though Spartacus showed no interest in attempting such operations. Instead, rebel army continued toward Alps, apparently maintaining strategic objective of escaping Italian territory entirely. However, reasons for army's eventual reversal towards southern Italy remain unclear, with various explanations including disagreements among rebel leaders, difficulties crossing Alpine passes, or strategic assessment changes. Rebel return to southern Italy provided Crassus opportunities to implement comprehensive strategy for ending rebellion through systematic military pressure combined with economic warfare. Crassus ordered fortification construction across Bruttium Peninsula's narrow neck, creating barriers trapping Spartacus' army in Italy's southern extremity. This engineering project, spanning approximately 35 miles from coast to coast, included trenches, earthworks, and palisades requiring substantial labor and resources, but effectively limiting rebel mobility and strategic options. The engineering marvel represented Roman determination to end this challenge permanently. Siege tactics employed by Crassus represented innovative applications of traditional Roman military engineering to irregular warfare situations. Fortifications included watchtowers, patrol routes, and supply depots, allowing Roman forces to maintain continuous pressure on trapped rebels while minimizing their own casualties. Barrier construction demonstrated Roman organizational capabilities and willingness to invest substantial resources in suppressing rebellion definitively rather than seeking quick but potentially incomplete solutions. This was total war waged with engineering precision. The Spartacus' attempts to breach Roman fortifications resulted in several ferocious battles, demonstrating both rebel desperate courage and Roman defensive preparation effectiveness. Rebels constructed rafts and boats attempting to cross to Sicily, where they hoped to incite slave revolts, providing additional recruits and strategic options. However, these naval operations failed due to Roman naval patrols and rebel limited maritime capabilities, leaving them trapped within peninsula with diminishing supplies and declining morale. The net was closing, and everyone knew it. The Third Servile War's final campaign occurred during spring 71 BCE, when Spartacus led remaining forces in desperate attempt to breach Roman lines and escape northward. Rebel final major battle took place in Lucania, where Spartacus personally led cavalry charges against Roman positions, attempting to create gaps through which his infantry could advance. Contemporary accounts describe Spartacus fighting with exceptional bravery and skill, killing 2 Roman centurions in personal combat before being overwhelmed by superior numbers and perishing alongside most of his army. The gladiator died as he had lived Mishti weapon in hand, fighting impossible odds. Rebellion suppression aftermath revealed Roman determination, extent to prevent future slave uprisings through exemplary punishment and intimidation. Crassus ordered 6,000 captured rebels crucified along Appian Way between Capua and Rome, creating a 120-mile corridor of death, serving as permanent reminder of challenging Roman authority consequences. Crucifixions continued for several days, with victims displayed at regular intervals, ensuring maximum visibility for travelers using the major highway. The message was unmistakable. This was the price of defying Rome. The gladiatorial schools had produced their greatest fighter, and Rome had crucified him along a highway, as a warning to all who dreamed of freedom. From Etruscan blood sacrifice to the greatest slave rebellion in history, the gladiatorial tradition had come full circle. Warriors trained to die for entertainment had nearly brought the Roman Republic to its knees, proving that even in death, they remained the most dangerous performers in the ancient world. Proved the Republic's readiness to deploy extreme measures maintaining social dominance. The political ramifications of the Third Servile War stretched far beyond immediate military resolution, contributing to broader Roman Republic crisis and ascent of powerful military leaders who utilized victories to advance personal political ambitions. Crassus's achievement in crushing the rebellion strengthened his reputation and supplied military credentials necessary for subsequent political career, including membership in the First Triumvirate alongside Pompey and Julius Caesar. However, rebellion's magnitude and persistence had exposed fundamental flaws in Roman social and economic structures that would continue generating instability throughout the Republic's final century. Spartacus and his followers' crushing defeat along the Appian Way marked gladiatorial rebellion's end, but also introduced an era where emperors would harness arena power for their own political survival and imperial legitimacy. Augustus, the first Roman emperor, comprehended that controlling gladiatorial spectacles meant controlling Roman populace hearts and minds. His systematic regulation of these performances transformed them from aristocratic funeral ceremonies and political instruments into imperial propaganda tools that would define ruler-subject relationships for the next 2 centuries. The transition represented complete gladiatorial evolution from sacred ritual to political weapon to imperial control mechanism. Augustus's approach to gladiatorial regulation commenced with the Lex Julia de Publicis in 18 BCE, establishing imperial oversight over all public entertainment in Rome and throughout provinces. This legislation demanded official approval for any gladiatorial contests exceeding certain scales, effectively terminating the era when ambitious politicians could sponsor massive spectacles advancing their careers. The law designated specific magistrates responsible for overseeing game organization, standardizing safety protocols, and ensuring spectacle served imperial rather than personal political objectives. Augustus personally reviewed applications for major games, using approval or denial as rewards and punishments for provincial governors and local elites. The emperor's personal involvement in gladiatorial affairs extended beyond mere administrative oversight to include detailed regulations governing fighter treatment, combat procedures, and audience management. Augustus established minimum standards for gladiatorial equipment, requiring weapons meet specific quality benchmarks and protective gear, provide adequate safety without compromising entertainment value. He mandated regular medical examinations for fighters, created standardized training protocols for different gladiatorial categories, and instituted appeals processes, allowing skilled gladiators to petition for freedom based on service records and combat achievements. This represented the complete bureaucratization of what had once been spontaneous blood sacrifice. Economic frameworks governing gladiatorial games under Augustus reflected the emperor's broader efforts to stabilize Roman society through systematic regulation and imperial patronage. The state assumed direct control over major gladiatorial schools, purchasing existing ludi from private owners and establishing new training facilities under imperial management. These imperial schools, known as ludi imperialis, operated according to standardized procedures emphasizing professional training, adequate medical care, and systematic fighter development, rather than profit-maximizing approaches, characterizing private enterprises. The emperor had nationalized the business of death. The Ludus Magnus, constructed adjacent to the Flavian amphitheatre during Domitian's reign, exemplified imperial approach to gladiatorial training and management. This massive facility housed approximately 3,000 gladiators in individual cells, arranged around central training arena, measuring 200 feet by 130 feet. The complex included specialized training areas for different gladiatorial categories, medical facilities staffed by skilled physicians, workshops for equipment maintenance and production, and administrative offices managing complex logistics of supplying fighters for games throughout the empire. Underground tunnel connecting Ludus Magnus to the Colosseum represented practical engineering masterpiece, allowing gladiators to move directly from training facility to arena without crowd exposure or potential escape opportunities. This tunnel, measuring approximately 20 feet in width and extending nearly 200 yards, featured multiple security checkpoints, guard stations, and holding areas where fighters could prepare for combat while remaining under constant supervision. Tunnel design included ventilation systems providing adequate air circulation and drainage channels preventing flooding during Rome's winter rains. Every detail served imperial control and spectacle efficiency. Daily routine within imperial gladiatorial schools reflected systematic approaches, characterizing a Byzantration across all government aspects. Gladiators rose before dawn for morning exercises, including running, calisthenics, and weapons practice with wooden training equipment. Morning sessions emphasized physical conditioning and basic skill development, preparing fighters for intensive combat training occupying afternoon hours. Meals were carefully planned to provide adequate nutrition for intensive training, while maintaining optimal fighting weight for different gladiatorial specializations. Afternoon training sessions within imperial schools focused on combat techniques specific to each gladiatorial category, with experienced instructors providing individual guidance and systematic skill development. Retiari practiced net casting and trident work against moving targets and mock opponents, while secutors developed aggressive pursuit tactics necessary for countering net fighters. Heavy gladiators like murmillones and threses worked on shield techniques, sword combinations, and endurance training required for extended combat in heavy armor. Training included psychological preparation designed to help fighters manage arena combat stress while maintaining aggressive mindset necessary for survival. Medical care provided to imperial gladiators surpassed that available to most Roman citizens, reflecting substantial investment represented by trained fighters and emperor's interest in maintaining high-quality spectacles. Each major gladiatorial school employed teams of physicians specializing in treating combat injuries, managing training-related ailments, and maintaining fighter health through preventive care. These doctors developed innovative surgical techniques for treating sword wounds, pioneered rehabilitation methods for injured fighters, and created dietary programs optimizing performance while preventing common health problems associated with intensive physical training. Gladiatorial physician expertise extended beyond simple injury treatment to include sophisticated understanding of human anatomy, pain management, and performance optimization, often exceeding knowledge available to military medics or civilian doctors. They performed complex surgeries repairing damaged tendons and muscles, developed techniques for treating internal injuries that would otherwise prove fatal, and created prosthetic devices, allowing fighters to continue careers despite permanent disabilities. Medical facilities within major gladiatorial schools included surgical suites, recovery wards, and pharmaceutical preparation areas, rivaling the best hospitals available to wealthy Roman citizens. The investment in gladiator health exceeded care provided to free citizens. The Flavian dynasty's approach to gladiatorial spectacle represented imperial control culmination over arena entertainment, combining massive public investment with unprecedented theatrical sophistication. Vespasian's decision to construct the Flavian amphitheater on Nero's private lake site carried profound symbolic significance, transforming despised emperor's personal pleasure ground into venue where ordinary citizens could witness spectacular entertainment funded by imperial generosity. Project scale required mobilizing resources from across the empire, including specialized craftsmen, exotic materials, and innovative engineering techniques, pushing Roman construction capabilities to their limits. Titus's inaugural games for the completed Colosseum in 80 CE established new standards for imperial spectacle, influencing gladiatorial presentations for centuries. The 100-day celebration featured approximately 3,000 gladiatorial contests, involving fighters drawn from schools throughout the empire, creating tournament atmosphere, showcasing imperial gladiatorial training program, diversity and skill. Games included representatives of every major gladiatorial category, exotic fighters from recently conquered territories, and special exhibitions featuring unusual weapon combinations and combat scenarios designed specifically for inaugural celebration. Logistical challenges of organizing Titus Centennial Games required unprecedented coordination between imperial administrators, gladiatorial schools, and support services throughout the Roman world. Transportation arrangements brought fighters from Britain, Germany, Africa, and Asia to Rome, along with specialized equipment, training staff, and medical personnel. Games required approximately 500,000 pounds of sand to cover arena floor throughout celebration, along with massive quantities of food for both participants and spectators, medical supplies for treating inevitable injuries, and security arrangements for managing crowds, often exceeding amphitheater normal capacity. Animal hunts accompanying Titus's gladiatorial games demonstrated empire reach and emperor ability to command exotic resources from furthest corners of Roman territory. Celebrations featured lions from Africa, tigers from Asia, bears from Germany, and elephants from both Africa and India, along with unusual animals like rhinoceros, hippopotamus, and various species of antelope and deer. Procuring these animals required extensive networks of hunters, trappers, and animal traders, specializing in capturing and transporting dangerous wildlife across vast distances while maintaining health and aggressive instincts. Staging animal hunts within the Colosseum involved complex theatrical presentations transforming simple killing into elaborate entertainment spectacles. Arena floor could be configured with artificial forests, rocky landscapes, and water features, creating realistic hunting environments while providing dramatic backdrops for action. Skilled hunters known as venatores engaged animals using specialized techniques and equipment, designed to create exciting contests while ensuring adequate performer safety. The most spectacular hunts featured multiple animals released simultaneously, creating chaotic battle scenes, testing hunter skills while providing maximum entertainment value for spectators. Trajan's Dacian triumph celebrations in 107 CE surpassed even Titus's inaugural games in scale and extravagance, featuring approximately 10,000 gladiators in contests, extending over 123 days of continuous entertainment. Emperor's recent Dacia conquest had provided enormous wealth through gold mines and territorial tribute, along with thousands of prisoners who could be trained as gladiators or used in mass executions, demonstrating Roman military superiority. Games celebrated not only military victory but also Roman civilization, expansion into new territories where imperial values and institutions would replace local traditions and customs. Trajan's gladiatorial celebration scale required establishing temporary training facilities and housing arrangements throughout Rome and surrounding territories to accommodate massive participant numbers. Existing gladiatorial schools could not house 10,000 fighters simultaneously, forcing imperial administrators to commandeer military barracks, construct temporary housing complexes, and establish satellite training facilities where fighters could maintain skills while awaiting scheduled appearances. Logistical complexity of feeding, housing, and managing such numbers tested Roman administrative capabilities and required innovations in crowd control, security, and resource management. Contest variety presented during Trajan's games reflected emperor desire to showcase Roman Empire diversity and imperial training program effectiveness in creating skilled fighters from diverse ethnic backgrounds. Celebrations featured traditional matchups between standard gladiatorial categories alongside exotic presentations involving fighters trained in regional combat styles from newly conquered territories. Dacian warriors fought with traditional curved swords and distinctive armor, while Germanic tribesmen demonstrated prowess with long swords and wooden shields. These ethnic presentations served both as entertainment and demonstrations of Roman military superiority over conquered peoples. Gladiatorial combat's role in imperial propaganda extended beyond simple entertainment to encompass sophisticated messaging about Roman values, imperial benevolence, and emperor's personal relationship with subjects. Successful gladiatorial games demonstrated emperor generosity in providing expensive entertainment, creating emotional bonds between ruler and ruled that transcended traditional political relationships. From Etruscan blood sacrifice to imperial propaganda machine, gladiatorial combat had completed its ultimate transformation, becoming the perfect tool for emperors to maintain power through controlled violence, spectacular entertainment, and the illusion that Rome's strength was as eternal as the blood spilled in its arenas. His dedication to public well-being through employing thousands of workers in game-related industries and his devotion to traditional Roman principles embodied in bravery and expertise demonstrated by arena combatants. Spectacles created shared experiences uniting diverse populations under imperial authority while providing outlets for social friction that might otherwise jeopardize political stability. Emperor personal attendance at gladiatorial contests carried tremendous symbolic importance, proving his accessibility to ordinary citizens and participation in traditional Roman cultural activities. Imperial box within major amphitheaters was designed to maximize emperor visibility while ensuring adequate security, creating theatrical settings where rulers could display appropriate responses to arena action while maintaining dignity required by their position. Emperor gestures during gladiatorial battles, decisions about life and death for defeated combatants, reactions to particularly masterful performances, and interactions with crowds were carefully observed and interpreted as indicators of character and fitness for rule. The choreography of imperial presence became as important as the combat itself. Development of imperial gladiatorial ceremonies included standardized rituals reinforcing emperor authority while creating predictable frameworks for public interaction between ruler and subjects. These ceremonies commenced with formal processions displaying emperor retinues, military guards, and symbols of imperial power, followed by religious observances connecting games to traditional Roman religious practices. Gladiatorial contests themselves were presented according to established protocols, emphasizing order, dignity, and respect for traditional values, while providing adequate excitement and entertainment for diverse audiences. Every element served to reinforce imperial authority through controlled spectacle. Imperial enthusiasm for personal participation in gladiatorial activities began with Caligula, whose fascination with arena warfare reflected both genuine interest in the sport and calculated efforts to enhance popular appeal through association with beloved entertainment. Caligula frequently attended training sessions at gladiatorial academies, where he observed combat techniques and occasionally participated in practice sessions using blunted weapons and protective equipment. These visits were carefully choreographed to demonstrate emperor physical courage and martial skills, while avoiding genuine risks associated with actual combat. The performance of power became indistinguishable from actual power itself. Caligula's involvement in gladiatorial activities extended to direct participation in arena exhibitions, where he fought against carefully selected opponents under controlled conditions, ensuring safety while creating appearances of genuine warfare. These performances featured emperor equipped with high-quality weapons and armor facing opponents, instructed to provide entertaining resistance without seriously threatening imperial safety. Contests were presented as demonstrations of emperor martial prowess and personal bravery, though informed observers understood the artificial nature of these exhibitions. The political implications of Caligula's gladiatorial activities generated controversy among Roman elites, who viewed such behavior as beneath imperial dignity and potentially damaging to emperor authority. Traditional Roman values emphasized distinctions between rulers and entertainers, and emperor participation in arena activities blurred these boundaries in ways some considered inappropriate for supreme political power holders. However, Caligula's gladiatorial performances proved popular with ordinary citizens who appreciated emperor willingness to participate personally in their favorite entertainment. Nero's relationship with gladiatorial warfare reflected broader interest in theatrical performance and public spectacle, though his approach differed significantly from Caligula's direct participation in arena fighting. Nero preferred sponsoring elaborate gladiatorial presentations, showcasing artistic vision and creative abilities, often incorporating theatrical elements, musical performances, and dramatic narratives, transforming traditional combat into complex entertainment spectacles. These innovations appealed to audiences appreciating novelty and sophistication while maintaining fundamental gladiatorial combat elements, defining the genre. Nero transformed the arena into his personal stage for artistic expression. Nero's gladiatorial innovations included introducing female fighters known as gladiatrices, who performed in specially designed contests combining traditional combat techniques with theatrical presentations emphasizing grace, skill, and feminine beauty. These female gladiators were typically drawn from upper-class women voluntarily entering arenas for excitement and social attention, rather than from slaves or condemned criminals forming majority of male fighters. Gladiatresses received specialized training, adapting traditional gladiatorial techniques for female physiology, while maintaining entertainment value and competitive intensity audiences expected. Female gladiator training required modifications to standard gladiatorial instruction, accommodating differences in strength, reach, and fighting style while maintaining competitive balance and entertainment value. Female fighters typically specialized in lighter weapon combinations, emphasizing speed and agility over raw power, though some gladiatresses mastered identical equipment used by male counterparts. Most successful female gladiators developed distinctive fighting styles, playing to strengths while creating visually appealing performances, satisfying audience expectations for both combat skill and aesthetic presentation. Commodus represented ultimate expression of imperial gladiatorial enthusiasm, personally participating in hundreds of arena contests throughout his reign, while transforming emperor relationship with gladiatorial warfare from occasional patronage to obsessive personal involvement. Unlike predecessors treating arena participation as political theatre, Commodus genuinely considered himself a professional gladiator and demanded recognition for fighting skills and arena achievements. His participation in gladiatorial warfare reflected both personal psychological needs and calculated political strategy, designed to enhance popularity, with masses forming his primary base of political support. The emperor had become the ultimate gladiator, the most dangerous transformation in Roman political history. Emperor gladiatorial career began with private training sessions within imperial palace, where he learned combat techniques from professional instructors, while developing physical conditioning required for arena fighting. Commodus employed some of the empire's most skilled gladiatorial trainers, providing individual instruction in various fighting styles, while adapting teaching methods to accommodate unique requirements of training an emperor. These sessions were conducted in complete secrecy, preventing political opponents from learning about emperor unconventional interests and using them for propaganda purposes. The palace had become a secret gladiatorial school, with the emperor as its star pupil. Commodus' public gladiatorial performances were carefully staged, ensuring safety, while creating appearances of genuine warfare, satisfying audience expectations, and enhancing reputation as skilled fighter. Emperor typically fought against opponents, instructed to provide entertaining resistance while avoiding actions that might seriously injure or kill him. These contests featured high-quality weapons and armor, providing adequate protection while maintaining visual appeal and apparent danger, making gladiatorial warfare exciting for spectators. Political consequences of Commodus's gladiatorial activities proved ultimately destructive to his reign and contributed to broader crisis, eventually ending the Antonine dynasty. His obsession with arena warfare distracted from administrative responsibilities of imperial rule, while alienating senatorial and equestrian classes, viewing behavior as undignified and inappropriate for emperors. Substantial resources devoted to gladiatorial activities, including private training facility construction and employment of hundreds of specialized personnel, diverted funds from pressing imperial needs, while generating resentment among taxpayers bearing costs of emperor's expensive hobby. Transformation of gladiatorial warfare, from desperate prison breaks to systematic imperial entertainment, required developing sophisticated training institutions, producing skilled fighters on industrial scales. Great gladiatorial academies of Rome and provinces operated as complex military-industrial enterprises, combining elements of prison, military academy, and professional sports facility, creating fighters capable of satisfying increasingly demanding audiences. These institutions represented some of the most advanced training facilities in the ancient world, employing cutting-edge techniques in physical conditioning, medical care, and psychological preparation, often surpassing those available to Roman legionaries. Ludus Magnus, Rome's premier gladiatorial training facility, established standards for imperial gladiatorial education through systematic approaches to fighter development and institutional organization. School daily routine began before dawn, with sounding of bronze horns summoning approximately 3,000 residents from individual cells to central courtyards for morning roll call. Each gladiator was assigned numbers corresponding to cell locations and training groups, creating administrative systems allowing instructors to track individual progress while maintaining discipline among large populations of potentially dangerous fighters. Morning exercises at Ludus Magnus emphasized fundamental physical conditioning, building strength, endurance, and agility required for arena warfare. Gladiators began with running exercises around school perimeter tracks, circuits measuring nearly half-miles, including obstacles, elevation changes, and varied terrain designed to simulate arena conditions. Running was followed by calisthenics, including push-ups, sit-ups, and jumping exercises, developing functional strength while improving cardiovascular fitness. These basic exercises were supplemented by specialized conditioning work using weighted training equipment, resistance exercises with leather straps and pulleys, and flexibility training maintaining joint mobility despite physical demands of combat preparation. Training weapons employed at Imperial gladiatorial academies were crafted specifically for instruction purposes, featuring increased weight and modified designs, building strength while teaching proper technique. Wooden gladiator used by novice fighters weighed nearly twice as much as combat weapons, forcing trainees to develop arm and shoulder strength necessary for extended sword work, while learning correct grip, stance, and striking patterns. Training shields were similarly oversized and weighted, requiring fighters to build core strength and endurance needed to maintain defensive positions throughout lengthy contests. The Palace training system formed foundations of gladiatorial combat instruction, utilizing wooden posts of varying heights and configurations, teaching fundamental attack and defense techniques. Each gladiatorial category trained against specifically designed posts replicating dimensions and characteristics of typical opponents. Retiari practiced net casting and trident work against posts, equipped with projecting arms, simulating human limbs, while secutors developed aggressive charging techniques against posts positioned to represent net fighters in various defensive positions. Posts were constructed from dense hardwoods withstanding repeated strikes while providing realistic feedback about proper weapon impact and edge alignment. Progression from basic palace work to advanced combat training followed carefully structured curricula, gradually increasing complexity and intensity as fighters demonstrated competence at each level. Novice gladiators spent first months mastering fundamental movements, footwork patterns, and weapon handling skills before advancing to partner exercises with other trainees. Early partner drills used heavily padded weapons and protective equipment, preventing serious injuries, while allowing fighters to experience timing, distance, and psychological pressure of combat against human opponents. Specialized training areas within major gladiatorial academies reflected diverse requirements of different fighter categories, and sophisticated understanding of combat techniques evolved through centuries of arena experience. From Etruscan blood sacrifice to imperial training factories, the gladiatorial tradition had achieved its final form and died for the entertainment of emperors and the roaring approval of crowds, who had forgotten these warriors were once free men with dreams beyond the blood-soaked sands of Rome's arenas. The transformation was complete. What began as sacred duty to honor the dead had become the ultimate expression of imperial power, a machine that turned human beings into entertainment, rebellion into spectacle, and death itself into the foundation of Roman civilization. Ludus Magnus included separate training courtyards for net combatants, where retiari could rehearse mobility-based strategies in spaces replicating arena dimensions and surface conditions. These zones featured sand flooring identical to those utilized in actual amphitheaters, along with obstacles and barriers, enabling fighters to cultivate spatial awareness and tactical adaptability required for successful arena performance. Heavy gladiator preparation occurred in reinforced sections where shieldwork impact and aggressive combat techniques would not damage facility structures or endanger other trainees. These spaces included specialized equipment for rehearsing shield charges, defensive formations, and close-quarters grappling techniques, often determining outcomes of heavily armored contests. Training areas were equipped with padded walls and floors, allowing fighters to rehearse high-impact techniques, while minimizing injury risks that could interrupt preparation schedules. Every detail was engineered for maximum efficiency in producing professional killers. Ludus Dacicus specialized in preparing fighters from recently conquered Dacian territories, adapting traditional combat techniques for arena presentation, while maintaining distinctive characteristics, making these warriors popular with Roman audiences. School training programs incorporated Dacian weapons, including curved falx swords and distinctive shield designs, requiring instructors to develop new teaching methods, preserving authentic fighting techniques while ensuring adequate safety for both trainees and opponents. Dacian fighters' natural aggression and familiarity with traditional equipment often allowed them to complete training programs more rapidly than combatants. Learning completely foreign combat styles, their ferocity had made them legends on battlefield and now made them celebrities in arenas. Daily schedules at Dacian-focused training facilities reflected fighters' cultural backgrounds while maintaining discipline and structure required for effective gladiatorial preparation. Morning training sessions began with traditional Dacian warrior rituals, helping maintain cultural identity and group cohesion among combatants, forcibly separated from homelands. These ceremonies included chanted prayers to Dacian war deities, group exercises reinforcing tribal solidarity, and maintenance of traditional hairstyles and body decorations, distinguishing Dacian fighters from other gladiatorial categories. Ludus Matutinus earned reputation as the empire's premier facility for training venatores and specialized beast fighters through comprehensive programs in animal handling, hunting techniques, and unique combat skills required for facing wild animals in arena settings. The academy maintained extensive menageries housing full ranges of animals commonly used in arena hunts, allowing trainees to gain experience with different species while developing specialized knowledge required for safe and entertaining animal combat. Beast fighter training programs at Ludus Matutinus began with extensive education about animal behavior, anatomy, and specific techniques required for engaging different species safely and effectively. Trainees learned recognizing warning signs preceding animal attacks, optimal striking points for quickly dispatching various creatures, and movement patterns preventing or minimizing animal charges. Theoretical knowledge was supplemented by practical exercises using tethered animals, mechanical devices simulating animal movements, and carefully controlled encounters with less dangerous species, allowing fighters to gain confidence and experience before facing more formidable opponents. Social hierarchy within gladiatorial academies reflected both military origins of organizational structure and complex relationships between different personnel categories required for effective operation. At each school's hierarchy apex stood the lanista, typically wealthy freedmen or businessmen owning facilities and bearing ultimate responsibility for financial success and operational effectiveness. Lanistae made crucial decisions about fighter acquisition, training priorities, equipment purchases, and rental agreements, providing school primary revenue through supplying gladiators for games throughout the empire. Magistri served as senior administrative officials within each academy, handling complex logistics of housing, feeding, and training hundreds of fighters while maintaining detailed records required for effective management. These officials typically possessed extensive gladiatorial experience, often having served as successful combatants themselves before transitioning to administrative roles. Magistri coordinated training schedules, managed equipment inventories, supervised medical care, and handled negotiations with game sponsors seeking to rent fighters for specific events. Doctors represented elite tiers of gladiatorial instructors, master fighters who had earned freedom through exceptional arena performance, and demonstrated teaching ability necessary for passing skills to new gladiator generations. Each doctor specialized in specific gladiatorial types or combat techniques, developing expertise making them invaluable for training fighters in particular knowledge areas. Most accomplished doctors commanded substantial salaries and enjoyed considerable autonomy developing training programs and selecting promising students for advanced instruction. Relationships between doctors and students involved complex dynamics, combining military discipline with personal mentorship, necessary for developing elite combat skills. Successful doctors learned balancing harsh training methods, building physical and mental toughness with encouragement and technical guidance, allowing fighters to reach full potential. Best instructors developed reputations, attracting ambitious trainees and influencing overall quality of fighters produced by their academies, creating competitive advantages, translating directly into financial success and professional recognition. Veteran gladiators who had survived multiple arena contests but had not yet earned freedom occupied intermediate positions within academy hierarchies, serving as assistant instructors, equipment specialists, and mentors for newer fighters. These experienced gladiators possessed practical arena combat knowledge that could not be taught through theoretical instruction. This included psychological techniques for managing pre-combat stress, tactical adaptations required for different opponents and venue conditions, and performance skills influencing crowd reactions and referee decisions. Tarocinium or novice gladiators formed largest populations within most academies and represented greatest investments of training resources and instructional attention. These new combatants came from diverse backgrounds, including military prisoners, condemned criminals, purchased slaves, and voluntary recruits who had signed contracts, surrendering legal rights in exchange for opportunities to earn money and potentially achieve fame through arena success. Integrating such diverse populations required sophisticated management techniques, forging effective fighting units from individuals with vastly different cultural backgrounds, physical capabilities, and motivational factors. Initial assessment processes for new gladiators involved comprehensive evaluations of physical condition, combat experience, psychological stability, and specific attributes, determining optimal gladiatorial specialization. Experienced doctores observe potential fighters through test series measuring strength, speed, agility, courage, and ability to learn complex motor skills under pressure. These assessments determined not only which gladiatorial type each fighter would train for, but also intensity and duration of training required to bring them to acceptable performance standards. Medical care provided within gladiatorial academies represented one of the most advanced healthcare systems available in the ancient world, reflecting both substantial economic investment, represented by trained fighters, and practical necessity of maintaining their health and combat effectiveness. Each major academy employed teams of specialized physicians, known as medici, who had developed expertise in treating specific injury types and health problems associated with intensive combat training and arena fighting. Gladiatorial physician medical knowledge encompassed sophisticated understanding of human anatomy, derived from extensive experience treating combat wounds and observing various weapon effects on human bodies. These doctors could perform complex surgical procedures, including repairing severed tendons, treating internal injuries caused by blunt force trauma, and managing infected wounds, often proving fatal without proper care. Surgical instruments included specialized tools designed specifically for treating gladiatorial injuries, such as curved needles for suturing wounds in difficult locations and extraction devices for removing embedded weapon fragments. Nutritional programs developed for gladiatorial training reflected advanced understanding of dietary requirements for maintaining peak physical condition, while supporting rapid healing of training injuries. Gladiatorial diets emphasized high-protein foods including meat, fish, eggs, and dairy products, providing building blocks for muscle development and repair. These protein sources were supplemented with grains, vegetables, and fruits, supplying carbohydrates and micronutrients necessary for sustained energy and optimal health. Specific dietary requirements varied according to each fighter's gladiatorial specialization and training phase, with heavier fighters receiving larger portions supporting greater muscle mass, while lighter fighters followed restricted diets maintaining optimal speed and agility. Fighters recovering from injuries received specialized nutrition, including additional protein and specific foods believed to promote healing, such as bone broth, organ meats, and various herbal preparations demonstrating effectiveness in treating common gladiatorial ailments. Psychological preparation of gladiators involved sophisticated techniques for managing mental stresses associated with facing potential death in public spectacles, while maintaining aggressive mindset necessary for effective combat performance. Most successful training programs recognized psychological conditioning was as important as physical preparation, developing methods helping fighters cope with pre-combat anxiety while building mental toughness required for arena survival. Religious and spiritual aspects of gladiatorial training provided important psychological support for fighters facing constant death possibilities in their professional activities. Most gladiatorial academies maintained shrines to various deities associated with war, courage, and protection, where fighters could offer prayers and sacrifices before important contests. These religious observances served multiple functions, providing emotional comfort for fighters while reinforcing group identity and shared purpose among diverse populations within each academy. Relationships between gladiators and trainers involved complex emotional dynamics, combining elements of military discipline, paternal guidance, and professional mentorship. Successful doctors learned inspiring loyalty and dedication from students, while maintaining emotional distance necessary for sending them into potentially fatal contests. Most effective training relationships produced fighters who viewed instructors as father figures and role models, creating psychological bonds motivating exceptional effort and performance, while providing emotional support necessary for coping with unique stresses of gladiatorial life. Psychological conditioning preparing gladiators for arena combat proved equally valuable in establishing gladiatorial culture throughout Roman provinces, where local populations encountered these spectacular entertainments as symbols of Roman civilization and imperial power. A systematic expansion of gladiatorial games beyond Italy began during the late Republic when successful generals and provincial governors recognized political advantages of sponsoring familiar Roman entertainments in newly conquered territories. These early provincial games served multiple functions simultaneously, demonstrating Roman cultural superiority, providing entertainment that could pacify potentially rebellious populations, and offering local elites opportunities to display loyalty to Roman values through traditional spectacle sponsorship. Gladiatorial games spread into Gaul commenced shortly after Caesar's conquest, when Roman administrators established permanent settlements and began cultural integration processes transforming Celtic society over following centuries. Initial Celtic response to gladiatorial combat reflected complex relationships between indigenous warrior traditions and Roman entertainment culture. Celtic societies had their own forms of ritualized combat, including single combats between champions and ceremonial fights associated with religious festivals, but these traditions differed significantly from systematic professional approaches characterizing Roman gladiatorial games. Amphitheater construction at Lugdunum, around 19 BCE, marked crucial milestones in Gaul's Romanization, providing permanent venues for gladiatorial games, accommodating audiences drawn from throughout provinces. This structure, measuring approximately 450 feet by 350 feet, featured standard Roman design elements, including tiered seating, underground chambers for housing fighters and animals, and mechanical systems necessary for staging complex spectacles. Amphitheater location at Rhone and Saône River confluence made it accessible to populations throughout central Gaul, while establishing Lugdunum as the region's primary center for Roman entertainment. Gladiatorial games at Lugdunum incorporated distinctively Celtic elements reflecting local cultural preferences, while maintaining fundamental characteristics defining Roman arena entertainment. Celtic warriors captured during conquest wars fought using traditional Celtic weapons, including long swords, oval shields, and distinctive helmets with elaborate decorations. These fighters, known as Galli in Roman sources, developed fighting techniques combining indigenous combat training with systematic instruction provided by Roman gladiatorial academies, creating hybrid styles proving popular with both Roman and Celtic audiences. Celtic gladiator recruitment followed patterns established throughout the empire, drawing fighters from military prisoners, condemned criminals, and volunteers seeking financial rewards and potential social advancement. Successful arena careers could provide. However, specific Celtic society circumstances created unique recruitment opportunities, as Roman conquest had displaced numerous warriors from traditional roles while creating economic conditions, making gladiatorial careers attractive to ambitious young men from tribal backgrounds. Celtic gladiator training required adaptations to standard Roman instructional methods, accommodating fighters' existing combat skills while introducing them to specialized techniques required for arena performance. From sacred Etruscan blood sacrifice to sophisticated provincial training networks, gladiatorial combat had become the ultimate expression of Roman cultural dominance, systems so perfectly engineered that conquered peoples eagerly adopted it as their own, transforming from victims of Roman expansion into willing participants in their own cultural transformation. The arena had achieved what no army could accomplish alone, the complete psychological conquest of the ancient world, where former enemies now competed to die with Roman dignity for Roman crowds, proving that the greatest victory was not defeating your enemies, but convincing them to become you. Numerous Celtic recruits brought extensive warfare experience from conquest battles, including familiarity with Roman strategic methods and weaponry systems that expedited their gladiatorial preparation. Nevertheless, their adjustment to entertainment aspects of arena warfare often proved more difficult, since Celtic warrior culture emphasized practical battle effectiveness over theatrical components that Roman audiences demanded from gladiatorial displays. Economic influence of gladiatorial spectacles on Celtic society stretched far beyond immediate costs of staging performances, generating entire industries supporting complex logistics required for regular arena entertainment. Local artisans cultivated expertise producing gladiatorial gear, including weaponry, protective equipment, and specialized apparatus required for different combatant categories. These manufacturing operations employed hundreds of skilled laborers while establishing supply chains extending throughout provinces and beyond. As Celtic-produced equipment gained recognition for quality and distinctive design features, it became sought after across the empire. The amphitheatre at Nemours exemplified adaptation of Roman architectural concepts to provincial circumstances and resources, while maintaining functional requirements necessary for effective gladiatorial presentations. Constructed during late 1st century CE, this building utilized local limestone quarried from nearby deposits, demonstrating how provincial communities could create impressive Roman-style structures using readily available materials. Amphitheatre capacity of approximately 24,000 spectators made it among Gaul's largest, reflecting surrounding region prosperity and gladiatorial entertainment popularity among Romanized Celtic populations. Design innovations incorporated into Nemours' amphitheatre included modifications addressing specific climatic conditions of southern Gaul while maintaining architectural standards expected of Roman public buildings. Structure featured enhanced drainage systems designed to handle region's occasional heavy rains, along with ventilation modifications, improving air circulation during hot summer months when major games typically occurred. These adaptations demonstrated Roman architectural principle, flexibility, and provincial builder ability to create effective solutions for local environmental challenges. Gladiatorial academies established in Gaul developed distinctive preparation programs incorporating Celtic fighting traditions while preparing combatants for standardized warfare styles expected in Roman arenas throughout the empire. Academy at Augusta Treverorum specialized in preparing fighters combining Celtic weapon expertise with Roman tactical discipline, creating gladiators performing effectively in provincial venues while meeting quality standards required for appearances in major metropolitan amphitheatres. Cultural integration of gladiatorial spectacles into Celtic society involved complex negotiations between Roman administrative requirements and indigenous social structures governing Celtic communities for centuries. Local tribal chieftains found themselves balancing traditional roles as military commanders and religious authorities with new responsibilities as sponsors of Roman-style entertainment, demonstrating loyalty to imperial authority. This transition required developing new forms of social prestige and political influence incorporating Roman cultural elements, while maintaining connections to traditional Celtic values and practices. Gladiatorial culture expansion into Hispania followed similar patterns but encountered different local conditions shaping specific characteristics of Spanish arena entertainment. Iberian Peninsula's diverse geography and varied cultural traditions created regional variations in gladiatorial practices, reflecting complex ethnic and linguistic landscape Roman administrators encountered during conquest period. Northern Spain's mountainous terrain favored development of hunting-based spectacles, utilizing local wildlife and traditional hunting techniques, while more urbanized southern regions adopted conventional gladiatorial formats closely resembling those popular in Italy. Amphitheatre at Emerita Augusta represented one of the most sophisticated provincial arena complexes, featuring advanced engineering systems rivaling those found in major Italian cities. Structure's underground chambers included elaborate animal handling facilities designed to accommodate exotic African wildlife forming major attraction of Spanish games, along with sophisticated water management systems, allowing naval battle presentations and elaborate scenic effects. Amphitheatre capacity of approximately 15,000 spectators served regional population, including both Roman colonists and Romanized Spanish communities, creating diverse audience with varied entertainment preferences and cultural expectations. Spanish gladiator recruitment drew heavily on Peninsula's military traditions and substantial population of prisoners captured during lengthy conquest wars, establishing Roman control over region. Spanish fighters, known for skill with traditional Iberian weapons, including curved falcata sword and distinctive shield designs, adapted readily to gladiatorial preparation, while maintaining fighting techniques, distinguishing them from other provincial gladiator categories. Spanish gladiatorial academies developed specialized programs preserving indigenous combat skills while teaching performance elements required for successful arena careers. Economic development, stimulated by gladiatorial spectacles in Hispania, created substantial opportunities for local entrepreneurs, establishing businesses supporting complex logistics of arena entertainment. Spanish craftsmen became renowned throughout empire for skill producing high-quality gladiatorial equipment, particularly weapons and armor, combining Roman functional requirements with distinctive Spanish decorative elements. These manufacturing operations generated substantial export revenues while creating employment opportunities, contributing to province's overall economic prosperity. Gladiatorial culture spread into Britain, presented unique challenges due to islands' geographic isolation, harsh climate, and fierce resistance, characterizing Roman conquest of Celtic tribes. Amphitheatre establishment in major British settlements occurred later than other provinces and required significant modifications to standard Roman designs, accommodating specific environmental conditions of Northern Europe. Amphitheatre at Camulodunum served as primary venue for gladiatorial spectacles in early Roman Britain, providing symbolic demonstration of Roman cultural dominance in former capital of British resistance. British gladiatorial experience incorporated elements of local Celtic warrior traditions, developing independently from continental European practices, creating distinctive fighting styles reflecting unique characteristics of insular Celtic culture. British combatants utilized traditional weapons including long swords, spears, and distinctive shields, proving effective against Roman military forces during conquest wars. Adapting these weapons and techniques for arena use required extensive modifications, preserving visual appeal and cultural significance, while ensuring adequate safety for both fighters and audiences. The climatic challenges of staging gladiatorial spectacles in Britain required innovative solutions addressing frequent rain, cold temperatures, and limited daylight characterizing much of year in northern latitudes. British amphitheatres incorporated covered areas and heating systems, allowing spectacles to continue during adverse weather conditions, while scheduling practices concentrated major games during brief summer months when outdoor entertainment remained feasible. These adaptations demonstrated Roman administrator determination to maintain cultural standards regardless of environmental obstacles. British gladiator recruitment reflected complex social dynamics emerging following Roman conquest, as displaced Celtic warriors sought new roles within imperial system while maintaining connections to traditional cultural identities. Many British fighters came from tribal backgrounds, emphasizing individual combat prowess and personal honor marth values, translating effectively to gladiatorial careers, while providing psychological motivation for intense preparation required for arena success. North African expansion presented different opportunities and challenges, as region's proximity to Rome and substantial urban populations created favorable conditions for gladiatorial development, while harsh desert climate and exotic wildlife offered unique entertainment possibilities. Amphitheatre at Leptis Magna in modern Libya exemplified grandeur characterizing North African arena construction, featuring elaborate decorative programs and engineering systems, rivaling finest Italian examples. North African gladiatorial tradition became renowned throughout empire for spectacular animal hunts, featuring continent's distinctive wildlife, including lions, leopards, elephants, and various species of antelope and other game animals. Procuring and transporting these animals created substantial economic opportunities for local hunters and animal traders, while establishing supply networks extending throughout Mediterranean world. Expertise developed by North African animal handlers and trainers became highly valued in amphitheatres throughout empire, creating career opportunities allowing skilled professionals to travel extensively while earning substantial incomes. Gladiatorial academies established in major North African cities developed specialized programs emphasizing beast fighting and hunting techniques, while maintaining comprehensive preparation in conventional gladiatorial warfare. Academy at Thysdrus became particularly renowned for producing skilled venatories engaging dangerous animals safely and entertainingly, creating performances satisfying audience demands for spectacular and exotic entertainment. Cultural integration of gladiatorial spectacles into North African society involved complex interactions between Roman entertainment traditions, indigenous Berber customs, and established urban cultures developed in major coastal cities. Local elites found in gladiatorial sponsorship opportunities to demonstrate Roman cultural sophistication while maintaining connections to traditional African values and practices. This cultural synthesis created distinctive North African variations in gladiatorial presentation, incorporating local musical traditions, ceremonial elements, and aesthetic preferences, while preserving fundamental characteristics defining Roman arena entertainment. Eastern provinces presented perhaps greatest challenges for gladiatorial expansion, as these regions possess sophisticated urban cultures and entertainment traditions developing independently over centuries. Greek cities of Asia Minor and Syria had their own forms of athletic competition and public spectacle, competing with gladiatorial games for audience attention and elite sponsorship. Successful integration of gladiatorial culture into Eastern contexts required careful adaptation respecting local preferences while introducing Roman entertainment standards. Amphitheatre at Pergamon demonstrated how Roman arena architecture could be successfully integrated into existing Greek urban environments while maintaining functional requirements necessary for gladiatorial presentations. Structure design incorporated Greek architectural elements and decorative programs while providing underground facilities and mechanical systems required for complex arena spectacles. This hybrid approach created venues satisfying both Roman administrative expectations and local aesthetic preferences. Eastern gladiator recruitment and preparation drew on regions' diverse military traditions and substantial populations of prisoners captured during various conquest wars and civil conflicts. Greek, Syrian, and Anatolian fighters brought different combat techniques and cultural perspectives to gladiatorial preparation, creating diverse talent pools enriching overall quality and variety of arena entertainment throughout empire. Gladiatorial academies in major Eastern cities developed programs accommodating diverse backgrounds while maintaining standardized preparation methods, ensuring consistent performance quality. Economic impact of gladiatorial spectacles in Eastern provinces created opportunities for local artisans and merchants, while stimulating trade networks connecting these regions more closely to broader imperial economy. Eastern craftsmen became renowned for skill producing luxury gladiatorial equipment and decorative items, combining Roman functional requirements with sophisticated artistic traditions of Greek and Near Eastern cultures. These products found markets throughout empire while contributing to economic prosperity of producing regions. Sophisticated gladiatorial networks connecting Eastern provinces to Rome's entertainment empire began facing their most formidable challenge, not from barbarian invasions or economic collapse, but from a growing religious movement fundamentally rejecting moral foundations of arena spectacle. Christianity's rise during 2nd and 3rd centuries CE created unprecedented ideological opposition to gladiatorial warfare that would ultimately prove more destructive to the institution than any military defeat or financial crisis. Christian critique of gladiatorial spectacles struck at the heart of Roman cultural identity, challenging not merely entertainment value of arena performances, but entire system of values sustaining gladiatorial culture for over 4 centuries. Earliest Christian opposition to gladiatorial spectacles emerged from theological principles, viewing human life as sacred and divinely created, making deliberate killing of human beings for entertainment purposes fundamentally incompatible with Christian doctrine. Apostolic fathers writing during late 1st and early 2nd centuries CE established foundational Christian position that participation in or attendance at gladiatorial games constituted murder by proxy, implicating spectators in bloodshed they witnessed and enjoyed. This theological stance created immediate practical problems for Christian converts, living in cities where gladiatorial spectacles formed essential elements of social and political life. Tertullian of Carthage, writing around 197 CE in his treatise De Spectaculis, provided most comprehensive early Christian condemnation of gladiatorial entertainment, combining theological arguments with detailed observations of arena culture, demonstrating intimate familiarity with spectacles he opposed. Tertullian argued gladiatorial spectacles violated multiple Christian principles simultaneously. They celebrated violence and death, encouraged bloodlust and cruelty among spectators, honored pagan deities through religious ceremonies, and created social hierarchies based on ability to provide expensive entertainment rather than Christian virtues of humility and charity. From Etruscan blood sacrifice to Christian moral revolution, gladiatorial combat faced its ultimate opponent. Not in any arena, but in the human conscience awakened to the sacred value of every life. The greatest battle in gladiatorial history would not be fought with sword and shield, but with words and faith, as Christianity began the long campaign that would ultimately empty the arenas forever and transform the Roman world's understanding of human dignity and the true meaning of courage. The Renaissance period sparked extraordinary scholarly and artistic fascination with gladiatorial traditions as humanist intellectuals accessed additional classical manuscripts, while archaeological discoveries began unveiling physical proof of Roman arena spectacles. Publishing comprehensive editions of ancient authors including Suetonius, Tacitus, and Pliny furnished Renaissance audiences with intricate descriptions of gladiatorial contests, while excavations in Rome and additional Italian municipalities uncovered amphitheater remains, combat equipment, and stone inscriptions that validated and enhanced literary documentation. Renaissance creators discovered in gladiatorial themes captivating opportunities to showcase their command of human anatomy, dramatic arrangement, and classical subjects that attracted educated benefactors acquainted with ancient literature. Artists like Giulio Romano and sculptors such as John Bologna produced works depicting gladiatorial warfare with anatomical precision and emotional power, reflecting both their creative abilities and scholarly comprehension of classical sources. These Renaissance masterpieces established visual conventions for portraying gladiatorial culture that would shape European artistic expression for generations. The scholarly framework developed by Renaissance humanists for examining gladiatorial traditions established methodological approaches that foreshadowed contemporary historical investigation techniques. Intellectuals like Justus Lipsius and Joannes Rosinus assembled comprehensive surveys of classical documentation regarding gladiatorial spectacles, while attempting to reconcile conflicting sources and bridge gaps in historical records through logical analysis and comparative examination. Their contributions created systematic knowledge foundations that served as groundwork for subsequent investigation, while demonstrating potential for rigorous historical scholarship concerning ancient entertainment culture. The Enlightenment era introduced fresh analytical approaches to gladiatorial studies as intellectuals applied rationalist philosophy and empirical methods to comprehending Roman arena traditions. Edward Gibbon's monumental Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire included detailed examination of gladiatorial contests as indicators of Roman moral deterioration and political dysfunction, while Montesquieu and additional political theorists employed gladiatorial culture as evidence supporting broader arguments regarding relationships between governmental systems and social principles. These Enlightenment interpretations established gladiatorial spectacles as significant subjects for historical and political analysis, rather than merely antiquarian interest. The archaeological revolution of the 19th century transformed gladiatorial research by providing systematic methods for excavating and analyzing physical evidence of Roman arena culture. Scientific excavation of Pompeii and Herculaneum revealed unprecedented details regarding gladiatorial daily existence, while establishing archaeological techniques applicable to amphitheater locations throughout the former Roman Empire. German scholars like Heinrich Schliemann and Adolf Furtwangen pioneered systematic approaches to excavating and documenting gladiatorial sites that established standards for subsequent archaeological investigation. Modern forensic archaeology development during the 20th century revolutionized understanding of gladiatorial culture by applying scientific analysis techniques to skeletal remains and additional physical evidence. X-ray examination, chemical testing, and statistical methods enabled researchers to extract detailed information regarding gladiatorial demographics, health conditions, dietary habits, and combat injuries that had been impossible to determine from literary sources alone. These scientific approaches transformed gladiatorial studies from primarily literary and artistic pursuits into rigorous interdisciplinary research programs combining historical, archaeological, and scientific methodologies. Contemporary archaeological investigation continues revealing fresh insights into gladiatorial culture through innovative analysis techniques and previously unexplored locations throughout the former Roman Empire. Recent excavations at gladiatorial academies in Austria, Turkey, and North Africa have uncovered evidence of training methods, equipment innovations, and cultural adaptations that expand understanding of how gladiatorial traditions spread and evolved throughout Roman territories. These discoveries demonstrate that gladiatorial culture was more diverse and sophisticated than earlier research had suggested. Computer modeling and virtual reality technology applications to gladiatorial research have created fresh possibilities for understanding arena architecture, crowd dynamics, and combat techniques through digital reconstruction and simulation. Researchers can now create detailed three-dimensional models of amphitheaters, enabling virtual exploration of underground chambers, mechanical systems, and seating arrangements, while testing hypotheses about how these structures function during actual events. These technological approaches complement traditional archaeological methods, while providing innovative tools for analyzing and presenting research findings. The enduring cultural impact of gladiatorial imagery in contemporary media reflects continuing fascination with Roman arena culture and its themes of bravery, conflict, and survival under extreme circumstances. Hollywood productions from Spartacus to Gladiator have introduced gladiatorial culture to global audiences, while interpreting ancient entertainment through modern cinematic techniques and contemporary moral frameworks. These popular presentations, while often historically inaccurate in details, have maintained public interest in gladiatorial culture and generated support for continued archaeological research and historical scholarship. Gladiatorial imagery's influence on contemporary sports entertainment demonstrates continuing appeal of controlled combat spectacles and psychological dynamics that made Roman arena entertainment compelling for ancient audiences. Professional wrestling, mixed martial arts, and additional combat sports consciously adopt gladiatorial themes and presentation styles while adapting ancient entertainment forms to modern safety standards and legal frameworks. These contemporary adaptations reveal enduring human fascination with ritualized combat and social functions that such entertainment serves across different cultural contexts. Modern understanding of gladiatorial culture as complex social institution, rather than simple brutal entertainment, reflects cumulative impact of centuries of historical research, archaeological discovery, and analytical scholarship. Contemporary historians recognize gladiatorial spectacles as sophisticated responses to specific social, political, and economic conditions within Roman society, while acknowledging their genuine entertainment value and cultural significance. This nuanced understanding avoids both romantic glorification and simplistic condemnation, while recognizing historical importance of gladiatorial culture within broader context of Roman civilization. Preservation and presentation of gladiatorial locations as cultural heritage sites demonstrates continuing relevance of Roman arena culture for contemporary society and education. The Colosseum in Rome, amphitheaters throughout Europe and North Africa, and museum collections of gladiatorial artifacts serve as tangible connections to ancient entertainment culture while providing opportunities for public education regarding Roman history and society. These preservation efforts ensure future generations will have access to physical evidence of gladiatorial culture, while maintaining locations and artifacts necessary for continued research and discovery. Gladiatorial culture's legacy extends far beyond immediate historical context to encompass fundamental questions about human nature, social organization, and relationships between entertainment and violence that remain relevant in contemporary society. Roman experience with gladiatorial spectacles provides historical perspective on modern debates concerning violent entertainment, ethics of combat sports, and social functions of public spectacle, while demonstrating both appeal and dangers of institutionalized violence as entertainment. This historical perspective enriches contemporary discussions while providing concrete examples of how societies have grappled with similar issues across different time periods and cultural contexts. The gladiatorial legacy ultimately represents complex intersection of human creativity, social organization, and moral challenge that continues resonating with contemporary audiences seeking to understand both ancient Roman society and their own cultural values. Arena fighters who once battled for survival and glory in amphitheaters throughout the Roman Empire have become symbols of courage, skill, and human capacity for both cruelty and nobility under extreme circumstances. Their story, preserved in stone monuments, archaeological remains, and cultural memory, serves as permanent reminder of humanity's capacity for both spectacular achievement and troubling moral compromise, ensuring that gladiatorial experience will continue informing and challenging future generations as they grapple with their own questions about entertainment, violence, and values that define civilized society. From Etruscan blood sacrifice to Renaissance art, from archaeological discovery to Hollywood blockbusters, the gladiatorial tradition has evolved from ancient religious ritual into modern cultural touchstone minors, a mirror reflecting humanity's eternal struggle between civilization and savagery, honor and brutality, entertainment and ethics. The arena is empty now, but its echoes still resonate through every stadium, every screen, every moment when we gather to watch others compete for our amusement, reminding us that we are never far from the crowds who once decided life and death with the turn of a thumb.